Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexi Otts here. Thursday morning is the Thursday Think Tank, and today I'm going to make my case for why I think Jerry Stackhouse should be the next head coach of the Toronto Raptors. I watched that All the Smoke yesterday that Monique had uh, uh, recommended, and it's from last summer during the Summer League in Vegas. Jerry sat down with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes and did their All the Smoke podcast while he was out in Vegas watching some of his Vandy players play in the Summer League. He was there just to hang out and be supportive towards his young players. And he just happened to sit down and do an interview with them. That interview was very interesting and fun and very loose and very illuminating. There's a lot of things about Jerry Stackhouse. You don't hear him in interviews very much. You don't understand his demeanor. In some ways, you hear the stories about him being hard-nosed and tough and maybe will fight you in practice. And you don't really get the whole feeling of him and how he delivers things until you watch a long interview like that. And you see how intelligent he is, just how much of an edge he has. We look at what Jimmy Butler did last night, and in some ways, Jimmy Butler is a variation of Michael Jordan. That's very, very true. You can tell they just put out the number one seed last night. Jimmy Butler very much showing a Jordan factor, a part in him. Well, Jerry Stackhouse has that in him also. It's a certain kind of drive and will to win. And in some ways, he's more powerful as a coach than he was as a player. It's really kind of weird and interesting. Whole bunch of things that Jerry said in that were very, very interesting to me. Like the linkages between him and Michael Jordan are very, very strong. Obviously, they have a lot in common. They were always compared to each other. They ended up playing with each other on the Wizards for a while. There's a lot of different interesting things about the history of Jerry Stackhouse that make him very lush with experience and with all kinds of abilities to really understand big games in the NBA. The way they talked about the playoff battles he was in at different points in his career, the big time games, and the different ways that he had to change his role for the team, whether it was like the man for Detroit or trying to coexist with Allen Iverson in Philadelphia, or being more of a bench player later in his career in places like Dallas. Jerry Stackhouse is a very interesting player who really likes winning. And I like those attributes about him. I like that he's a hard-nosed person, that's fiery, that can get emotional and get very passionate about what he wants. That's something I really want in a coach. Some people didn't like Nick Nurse for that, but I did. I thought that was very important in a coach, the ability to freak out or to be able to be like, wow, about something and just come at the refs. I like that. The fact that he did coach 905 for 2 seasons is really important. In fact, they talked about that period of time with Jerry's post-career after playing as a player, being a coach for the Raptors in our organization under Coach Casey, and winning the G League championship his first year as the G League coach, and then going to the finals and losing in the finals in his second year. And he talked about when they hired Nick Nurse. And this is what he said, and this is why I think we should hire him, is because he really did want the job here. You could tell there was pain in his voice. At any point in this whole interview, this may have been the one point where he actually showed some real strong pain, where he said, I really thought I was going to get that job. Like he said this about the Toronto head coaching vacancy before when Nick Nurse was hired. He said that summer, I really, really thought I was going to be the next head coach of the Toronto Raptors. So I don't question his wanting to be a head coach in the NBA. I know he wants to be, and it would really fit with Toronto because, first of all, this is one of the things he said also in his interview is that Masai was the first one to give him the chance. And he really appreciates that. In fact, when he said Masai's name in that interview, he had a lot of positive energy and weight in saying Masai. He said, Masai Ujiri met me, and he said, I'd like you to come and be a coach underneath Dwayne Casey. And it's like he lit up when he said that because he looks at Masai Ujiri as somebody who believes in him. So in some ways, these are things that really go for us in getting him is because, listen, he's been successful at every coaching thing that he's done. He's been successful at Vandy. He was successful at 905. He may not have Raptors or he may not have NBA head coaching experience, but this dude is ready. It's almost like the stuff that happened with 905 and him not getting the job, and then him going to Memphis. He was an assistant coach for Memphis for a year, and then he went and took the Vandy job. And the 4 years that he's been at Vandy, he's really built that culture there. Now that may be the thing that keeps him there and doesn't bring him to Toronto, is that he's kind of started something in Vanderbilt that is very, very important. And he really values it. Like he's really enjoying being a coach of Vanderbilt. So he's happy where he is. He doesn't need this job in Toronto. But if he really wants to make that leap and be one of the 30 NBA head coaches in the league, this may be the time. And it could really be seriously the time because, listen, he doesn't have anything to do with Nick Nurse in some ways. Nick Nurse was the head coach after he left. And in some ways, he never was underneath Nick Nurse's regime. So he would be more like from Casey's regime. And in some ways, he really is that kind of coach, a development kind of coach. One of the things Jerry said in the All the Smoke was, I really like coaching the children of former NBA pros. Like he gets them. Like he had Scottie Pippen Jr. at Vanderbilt for the last couple of years before he went to the Lakers this year. And he says he really enjoys coaching pros kids. Well, we got Gary Trent Jr., we got Ron Harper Jr., we've got youngsters that kind of have that pedigree, and that's awesome. I love that so much. So there are signs that point that Jerry would really like to take our Toronto Raptors head coaching job. I'll bet you if he's interviewing for it, he will be one of the top candidates. And for me, I give him the Raptor Freak seal of approval. Because first of all, he has a very cutting edge, kind of like Jimmy Butler, winning edge to him as a personality. And that's what we need more of, especially from the leader, the head coach of our team. We need somebody that will not be lackadaisical, somebody that will be in people's faces and hold them accountable and get a lot out of them. I'm sure if Jerry's looking at our roster right now, he's like, this is attractive. Yeah, I've got a young man named Scotty Barnes. I've got Precious Achua. I've got all these different players like Pascal, Fred, Pirtle, OG. This team is attractive in some ways, but apparently I'm hearing it wasn't attractive to Ime Udoka. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Jerry is a great fit. He's been here before. In some ways I have a few concerns, but for the most part, I don't have concerns about the most important things. And that is basically that whether he would want the job and whether he would do a good job at it. I think he would do a good job at it. So I'm fully endorsing Jerry Stackhouse at this point to be my number one choice to be the next head coach of the Toronto Raptors. There's just a lot of history with him from being a player, his legacy with UNC, with Michael Jordan, the history and the stories and the things he can teach our guys are from real playoff experiences, playing in the playoffs in the NBA's 18 years as a pro. All the different stories and all the different things he could tell these guys, really, really good. He talked about his coaching philosophy on All the Smoke, and it sounds like the stuff that he values and is important to him as far as with offense and defense will really fit in with where we are with our franchise in our development schedule right now. That in some ways he is a development kind of coach, and he's the kind of guy that can get us to the next level in the right place. And I'm really excited about it. I hope we hear something about it at some point. But there's interesting things happening now. Last night, some teams went out finally. Milwaukee ousted from the playoffs by Miami, the 8th seed. Really shocking. There's going to be fallout from this. A lot of people are calling for Coach Budenholzer's head already. And this is the thing. It could turn around and be like they want to fire Budenholzer in the next couple of days just because he went out in the first round as the best record in the NBA. This is crazy. Chris Boucher said on the Hustle Play podcast yesterday that he thought that Milwaukee was the favorite to win it all, that from the Raptors games this season, playing all the teams, Milwaukee was the best team, and they were the team that they had the hardest time with, and he was picking them to win. Well, now they're out, Chris. You got to pick somebody different, and it is shocking. Giannis in the press conference, very salty towards the reporters, saying, Michael Jordan had this many years in his career, and he only won 6 times, so 13 of those years he failed, being very excuse oriented. I mean, he does have a excuse. He did miss a few games in this series, and that may have mattered. But listen, this is the playoffs. You got to have that Jimmy Butler dog kind of spirit. You got to have that Kyle Lowry will to win. You have to be like Eric Spoelstra. and just go for opportunity and take it and just mess people up. And now the NBA has the matchup, the classic 90s matchup that they've wanted. It's going to start on Sunday. New York and Miami in the playoffs again. This is a classic rivalry, Heat and Knicks, and it's going to be crazy. Spike Lee, get ready for the fun. The Knicks, of course, advancing and putting out the Cavs last night also. That was fantastic. In some ways, we see the fraudulent Cavaliers for who they were the whole time, this whole entire season. All these new lovers of the Cavs. Oh, the Cavs are so fun. They're so cool. Their team is so cool with Spider Mitchell. Yeah. Yeah, we see where they get. Yeah. Yes, I'll do my evil laugh towards the Cleveland Cavaliers today and the Milwaukee Bucks. All right, let me check in with y'all in the comments, and we'll go from there. Mike is here, Logical Raptors fanatic, making his return to the channel this morning. Respect, Lex, for coming through. I'll be back around next week, missing the Raptor Freak family, but I need a break from things. The playoffs have been interesting. Bucks had worse season than us from expectations. Yeah, I mean, listen, we may have looked like a fail with what we did, but in some ways, there's some bigger failures coming down the pipeline right now, and Milwaukee's definitely one of them. Some people are trying to say that this 8 seed upset of the Milwaukee Bucks may be one of the biggest upsets in the history of the NBA. The Miami Heat putting out Milwaukee in the first round like this. This is pretty big. I mean, you know, in some ways, this is the way the NBA scriptwriters wanted it because, listen, Milwaukee's not a big market. And in a lot of ways, they get treated like Toronto does. They do not want Toronto and Milwaukee to go far in the playoffs. And any kind of way on the down low that they can help things in certain ways, they will. And Jimmy Butler, you know, it's not that they needed a lot of help. They did what they did. It's just that this is the way they want it righted. You know, if they get Miami and New York in the second round, hell yeah, they want that more than Milwaukee and New York because there's a lot of history to Miami and New York. It's way more attractive. They're all about ratings right now. They're doing a really good job with an exciting playoffs this season. There's a lot of good stories going on, and it's like must-watch TV for everybody, and they want to continue that vibe. Well, in some ways, Milwaukee is boring. And they're small market and they're not as big and attractive. And the NBA is not going to help them. They're not going to prop them up and help them like when the big market teams like LA or New York or Boston. And now they're out. And that shows just how much like Milwaukee and Toronto has to be that much better because they're not wanting us to get high in the playoffs. The same thing is for the Bucks, just as the Raptors. This is just how it is. Our franchises are not the most attractive places for them to make a lot of money, like New York Knicks are or Miami Heat. So that is part of it right there. And yeah, in some ways, we don't look so bad at this point. Nako's saying expectations-wise, the Cavs and Bucks had worse seasons than us. Jimmy Butler for MVP. You know, Jimmy's going to get all NBA. Should have been an all-star. And just a fantastic will to win. This is the way you play, youngsters. You want to be an NBA player, be like Jimmy. Jimmy is the spirit animal that you guys need to be as players. Be more like Jimmy. Jimmy comes from the school of Jordan, and boy, oh boy, is he the most like Jordan in these playoffs. He has that moxie. He has that thing. I'm seeing all these pictures on Twitter with half the face of Jordan, half the face of Butler, and it matches up real nice. It looks like the same person. So yeah, I agree, Gerald. The Cavs and the Bucks are definitely a bigger disappointment than the Raptors this morning, for sure. Monique is here. Appreciate you so much, Chris. Man, oh man. Wow. Good morning, everyone. She's talking about the new hustle play that dropped yesterday. Listen, Chris did exactly right. He towed that line of talking about everything without giving too much away, without breaking locker room code, without effectively just throwing Nick under the bus by name. He was very, very nice to him in a lot of ways. Now, the jabs and the little things about how things went wrong are there. But in a lot of ways, this wasn't a hit piece on Nick Nurse, this hustle play with Boucher yesterday. This was more about like searching for answers and giving us a little bit more of filling in the what happened. Very, very crazy year, as Chris said, is a weird year. There was all kinds of things he covered in the show. He talked about his reaction to Nick getting fired. And what he said was that he didn't think it was going to happen. He didn't realize that this was happening or developing like this. In fact, it was after the Chicago game that he actually heard the Philadelphia press conference. And when he heard that, he was like, oh, crap, I didn't realize he had said that. And this was after they were already done. And then he kind of said, this is a kind of thing like where if you tell your landlord you want to move, and the landlord said, yeah, well, go ahead and move then, is exactly what Chris described the whole Nick Nurse incident. And he's exactly right. He sees this just as we saw it on this channel is, Nick, why the fuck did you open the door to walk out of it? Because that's really what you did. You opened the door for you to walk out of. And that's what you did. You didn't have to open a door like that. You were pretty safe with your job security. I don't know if you thought you were in trouble. Maybe you were on the down low because internally they had been monitoring you and knew that you've been failing all season. But it's still weird. And once again, this is sabotage. The timing is bad. And Chris said that too. He's like, the timing wasn't good. So yeah, that analogy, he was all about analogies yesterday. He started talking about snow tires and summer tires and all year tires. It was crazy. It was crazy. Chris, you go. It was hilarious. Awesome stuff. All right, let me see what else you guys are saying in the comments. Mike's saying there's one winner and 29 losers in the summer, ready to make changes. The offseason is the time to change things and create plans, not middle of the season or trade deadline. Listen, he had a game plan for us last season. It all went out the fucking window. Whether it was like the failure of Scotty to be the number one point guard and run the team at the beginning of the season, or Pascal doing the splits in Dallas, he had to be very improvisational, and he didn't have the right answers to fit the problems to keep things winning and going in the right direction. In fact, some of the adjustments did not work, and we were just flat out bad. And it's too bad. There's a lot of different reasons why we had to keep adjusting this whole season. There's the trade to get Pirtle. That totally changed our makeup of our team. So we really didn't get, and then we're adding people like Will Barton right at the end of the season. We really didn't get a stretch where we had the cohesive unit all together healthy and we're running smooth for a long time. There were a lot of periods of that last season before, and this season didn't happen. There were no settled serenity kind of peaceful times where we could really get going with everybody all together. There was always something changing, somebody missing, some sort of adversity going on the team, whether it was with the coach on the down low or was getting a trade or an injury or something like that. So it's like, how the fuck you got to do this, Mike, as you're striving to win in a tumultuous season. So it's just how it was this year. Monique saying, when I really think about Earl and Stackhouse are the better choices, Stackhouse's life story was pretty good on All the Smoke. Yeah, you really hear like his varied experience and just how much he is a part of the NBA family. As far as like you see the respect from Barnes and Steven Jackson on the show, as far as like they respect this dude as like a pro, somebody they went to battle against many times back in the day, and somebody who's just been around and really, really knows, NBA life and culture as a pro. And, like I said, the vast knowledge, that fact that he can tell Michael Jordan stories real easy, that is attractive. I'm not going to lie. The fact that he knows Michael and knows him pretty well, it's funny how he's talking about him. He's like, I could talk to him anytime. It's like people, I talk to Mike all the time. He's very supportive towards me. People think we didn't get along because they did have some conflict when they both played for the Wizards. It was like Michael was 40 years old and Jerry was in the prime of his career. And he was kind of like the leading scorer for the Wizards, but there was a little bit of a power struggle because a lot of people thought Michael should be the number one guy, even though Jerry was the guy who was like in the prime of his life. And that spurned a lot of like weird kind of conflict in dumb ways. But listen, just the fact that he was able to rival Michael Jordan at some point in his career and in the conversation like that says a lot about him. And Jordan and him have no ill feelings. In fact, I think they're pretty close at this point. There probably is a lot of respect from Michael Jordan for Jerry Stackhouse and his life and his career and what he's accomplished. So, all right, let's see. Fiercey's bringing this up. This is interesting. Good morning, fam. What a day yesterday. Ime is dissing us as if the Rockets are better. Giannis missing all those free throws, which probably costed the game. The Knicks eliminating Cavs. That was amazing. Wow. Good morning to you, Fiercey. Always good to see you. When you wrote that, I didn't know that Ime had did something. I didn't find this article until you wrote that. And I looked it up a minute before I went on the air. And I was just reading it just now. And it's kind of pissing me off. Because, listen, you don't have to do this. Like, don't do a Malcolm Brogdon or don't do a Goran Dragic or any of this kind of stuff. We see where Goran Dragic is now. He's out of the playoffs. Now, this is stupid. All right, so Udoka spoke to the reporters yesterday on Wednesday for the first time since he was hired as the new head coach of the Houston Rockets. and he shed some light on his decision to take the coaching job with the Rockets instead of the Raptors. And this is what he said exactly. This is more attractive than a lot of the mid-level teams that kind of have that ceiling, that 5 seed ceiling. From the teams that did reach out, I'd rather start with a young core group and try to build something great here. Oh my gosh. So in some ways, he just unnecessarily like kind of dissed us for what he thinks our ceiling is. In some ways, he's a Celtic and he hates the Raptors. In fact, we gave him his first ever loss in his NBA career. In some ways, I didn't totally trust Udoka, partly because of this kind of shit and this kind of mentality that he doesn't respect the Raptors or Toronto other than Masai, and that's why I don't even fucking want him to come here, because we want a real one. We want one that'll buy into the purple and red and black and gold and not fucking be flaky or weird like this. Go ahead and go down to the strip clubs in Houston. I'm sure James Harden can tell you all about all the best places to hang out, MA. You go ahead and go down there and hang out with those ragtag youngsters, the Houston Rockets. Yeah, you go ahead and do that. Part of the reason why he took that job is they're really hoping they'll get Victor Wembanyama. And, the only player that showed up for his press conference was KP Jr. And whatever, man. In some ways, this isn't really news. It's unnecessary shot fired. And, we're going to remember this. This is the thing, MA. Once you do shit like this, Raptors Nation never forgets. And Goran Dragic can tell you that. And, there's no reason to do this kind of shit. I know you didn't specifically say us, but we know exactly that's who you mean, because we were your best suitor other than Houston. And when you say you think that we are only good enough to be a 5th seed, yeah, we'll show you something new next year. Yeah, and good luck with those youngsters, corralling them like kittens. They're going to be all over the place, going all over in different things, getting, bright, shiny thing and going over here. Yeah, you get that discipline out of them. If you can get them to work like your Celtics, yeah, I doubt it. Those guys are going to be real tough for you to coach. So, yeah, you will see what happens with you down in Houston. You may have a problem there. All right, Logical saying fiercely 10 of 23 free throws and no DR. I was wondering if there was like a Miami Heat young lady there or something, like Jimmy Butler's daughter or something, maybe Kyle Lowry's son or something. And they were doing the DR DeRozan position for the Miami Heat last night. Seeing as Giannis was 10 for 23 from free throws last night, he could have single-handedly won that game. It's really a similar thing to what happened with the Raptors. We can look at the free throws missed from that Raptors Bulls playing game, and we can very much blame lack of concentration at the free throw line for part of the reason why the Raptors season ended. Well, they can say the same damn thing about Milwaukee now, and we could see like some of the people on Twitter are being critical of Milwaukee Bucks, and this was like, this is a championship caliber team. This is the best record in the league, and they play like dog shit like this in the last most important game of the season, a game where they could lose, a game where they were winning. And they let a lead go back. It's very fishy, and it's just like the way the Raptors went out in a lot of ways. They had a big lead. They were at home. They had missed free throws that contributed to the loss. So Milwaukee kind of went out the exact same way we went out, except it was all in a Comto with the missed free throws, not the whole Raptors team. Now, like I said, there's a lot of speculation that Coach Bud's job is in jeopardy. In fact, some Milwaukee fans are all over Twitter already posting that they want Nick Nurse, and they want to just go ahead and fire Bud and bring in Nick Nurse right away. This is crazy. Now, this is the thing. They fire Bud, then Bud's all of a sudden available, and maybe Masai's going to go and interview him, and there's some sort of weird Milwaukee-Toronto head coach swap or something this year. Who knows? Things are developing. And maybe this is why Masai doesn't want to move too quickly with the head coaching search, because somebody like Coach Budenhauser might be available all of a sudden. Monique saying, I said what I said in my IG stories, but we'll see what happens in a few weeks with the coach's idea. Again, I'm anxious. Yeah, listen, until this is settled, I mean, Monique and I, in some ways, we don't sleep totally well because we want to know who's in charge of our Toronto Raptors and are going to be the head coach, the next head coach. Listen, I don't think that Earl's a bad pick either. I know he's your number one, and he's been my number one too. It's just that I've really thought more deeply on this at this point. With more and more I think about it, I like Jerry. I really, really do. I think that it's going to be nice if it'll be his first team head coaching. That'll make it special, and it'll bond him. And, he does really, you can tell he really likes and respects Masai from that All the Smoke interview, that he's like, looks at him as somebody who gave him a chance. And that is very powerful in some ways. You got to understand, when somebody gives you a chance, like Fred VanVleet got a chance from the Raptors, you become very loyal to them. And in some ways, there's a loyalty Jerry has to the Raptors just because Masai gave him a chance to coach here and be in the 905 coach and have success in that way. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Earl Watson's not a bad pick, but like you said yesterday, you went on his Instagram and Earl has wiped any association with the Toronto Raptors. And sometimes, if that happens with players or coaches, that means they're on the bubble about whether they think they're going to have a future with that team or not. They wipe off all their associations on there. Now, Rico, on his Instagram, it still says Toronto Raptors assistant coach, development coach. But on Earl, it has nothing saying that he has anything to do with the Raptors at this point. And I know that in some ways you speculated whether Earl taking his ties to the Raptors off his Instagram means that he's already been interviewed and he doesn't think he's going to get it and he's moving on already. See, that's some ways that's the sign I'm getting from what you said, Monique, when you reported to our Facebook chat that Earl Watson has wiped Toronto Raptors ties on his Instagram. That's true. We've seen it. I went and looked at it after you said that. Nako saying, I can see Stackhouse being a coach we need before Ime. I'm all in on Stackhouse, G is saying also. Yeah, he's just got a great respect and experience around the league. He obviously knows most of the refs, and he may not know some of the younger refs, but he definitely knows all the old head refs. And that's more important in a lot of ways. And listen, the kind of stuff that he can teach Scotty and the youngsters and stuff, they'll listen to Jerry. And in some ways, he'll be the hard-nosed, kind of hard-ass coach that some of them are more used to. In some ways, Nick Nurse was very a player's coach and just kind of like, everything's nice. Have fun, guys. Do what you want to do. And, well, we need a coach that's going to come in and tell them what to do. And if they don't do what he's telling them, then he's going to get on them. And I'm all about that kind of coach now. And Jerry is that kind of coach. He gets a lot out of his players. He gets a lot out of his Vanderbilt players. He did an amazing job with the 905, the 2 seasons he coached it. I mean, seriously, he won the chip and then he got to the finals and lost in the finals the 2 years he coached our G League team. So in some ways, that shows already that he can thrive and be successful in our system at that level. I'll bet you he can do it at the higher level too. And he's ready for it. Listen, it may not have been good for them to take him straight from the G League and give him the job when they gave it to Nick. That may have been too much, too quickly. So maybe he needed to go and diversify his coaching resume by going to Vanderbilt and doing successful things on the college level and getting awards there, like SEC Coach of the Year, and bringing them into relevancy as a team over 4 years of coaching them. In some ways, that is more building and accolades and experience for him that continued after he left 905 in the Raptors organization. And that now it's time to boomerang back and come back. And like I said, that familiarity is something that's really good. The clout with the referees, the pro experience to share with our young players, the fact that he's been innovative and very creative as a coach and successful with his schemes and the things that he values as far as what he wants these players to do when he's coaching. His philosophies just sounded really true. He went into it a little bit in the All the Smoke interview, talking about what he values as a coach and what he wants his players to do. And it sounded like it was stuff we need. Like he's very much all about passing in a good hurried offense that has a lot of like guys involved. And that's the exact opposite of what our offense with the isolation has been the last few years. Well, I want to see what Jerry Stackhouse has for offensive schemes as far as getting our guys more out of them. First of all, he could look at our guys and probably be like, well, this is what I do with Scotty. And like, we may see a whole different kind of thing because these guys get used in different ways with a different creative mind, thinking about how they can be used. And I'm all about it. I want to see what he can do. And I like seeing that you guys have support for Stackhouse also. We do these Thursday think tanks and we think about fit. We did a lot of players last season because it was like Ayton, Gobert, Mitchell, we're all on the market. And, we looked at them and a lot of them were like, nah, I don't like the fit. Well, this is a Thursday think tank where I'm fully endorsing the fit and saying, Masai, Bobby, if you watch the Raptor Freak, I'm telling you, very heavily consider Jerry Stackhouse as our next head coach. I think that it'll be very fresh, very exciting. and it will it will reinvigorate things with our team too. Like seriously, Scotty would be like, "Holy shit, Jerry Stackhouse is my coach now," and he would probably be very excited about it. I'm telling you right now, that's the kind of thing you want to do. You could hire Adrian, you could hire Earl, but in some ways, it's not as sexy or flashy or invigorating as a Jerry Stackhouse would be. As far as like building an excitement, kind of a pulse into it, like, whoa, this has got a vibe. Like, this is going to be good. That's what I want. That's what I want. Race mode's here. Good to see Edmund. Good morning, freaks. We need a player coach. Kyle Lowry on the Raptors. That would be fun. I mean, that'd be kind of crazy. Chris talked about Kyle Lowry's dog being gone in this team. That if he had to pinpoint something different about the Raptors team this year, is that he noticed that, like, since Kyle's been gone, we've been losing that dog mentality, that win at all costs. He described it as when we're the underdog, that we come in like with an underdog spirit, like we're coming to beat you down and come and get you. Well, we lost that at some point. I guess we weren't the underdog anymore. That in some ways everybody's kind of thinking we're top dog. And when we're fighting as a top dog, coming with the people below us, we're not as motivated. In some ways, that's the motivation you need, is to be like, well, I feel like the small dog attitude, and I'm coming in, the underdog, and I want to beat your ass. And that was something that Kyle Lowry carried the spirit of the Raptors for many years, and that was part of our culture. Chris pointing that out on the hustle play and saying that since Kyle left, we've lost this to a degree. And he does mention that Fred is trying to carry that mantle still, but it's not exactly the same. And that he points to the departure of Lowry as being a huge factor in what's happened with the change in our culture, obviously. Now, Fred has been doing a good job of trying to fill in his shoes for the most part, but he isn't exactly Kyle. And in some ways, he can't just switch and become new Kyle. He has to be Fred. And he has some of the Kyle elements in him. Chris admits this. But in some ways, there's still stuff that we lack that we had when Kyle was here, and that Miami sees it in the game beating the 8 seed last night. Fantastic achievement by the Miami Heat, honestly. And thank you for putting Goran Dragic out of the playoffs, his higher aspiration. Goran Dragic, Cleveland Cavaliers. I gotta laugh. I'm sorry. All right, let me keep going. Trevor J saying, good morning. Watching Cleveland last night talk all that shit. I'm getting put out. Robinson dominated the two centers of this Cleveland Bigs. This is very true, Trevor, and I'm glad you brought this up. They've heralded, they were giving Defensive Player of the Year votes for Evan Mobley. They're trying to prop him up in certain ways. They have two really good centers, and they still got outplayed by Mitchell Robinson. You go, Mitchell Robinson. I love seeing that you did that, bro. That you were the best center on the court in this elimination game where you guys put out the Cavs. Mitchell Robinson with 13 points, 18 rebounds. He had 11 offensive rebounds, hitting the boards hard, 6 of 9 from the field, a +8. Mitchell Robinson, you were the best big out there. And meanwhile, I go and look at the two centers for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had 10 points together. So he outscored them with 13 points, both of them. And then they had 13 rebounds. So he out-rebounded them both together too. But yeah, this is hilarious. Like, seriously, Cleveland, you're so overhyped. They just wish you were so much better than you were. The NBA machine wanted to build you up, and everybody wants to talk about this. Yeah, you're full of shit. You're not as good as you guys think you are. And stop even talking like you don't know. We're going to come back. We're going to be different next year, the Raptors. And we're going to be better than all y'all. All right? Yeah. All right, let's see. Fiercely saying, with your depiction of Stackhouse, I would be so stoked if he ends up with us. Thanks, Fiercely. Well, listen, this is part of what I do. I do research, and my latest subject to really look at was Jerry, and wanting to learn more about Jerry Stackhouse and whether I wanted to watch All the Smoke and see how he talked about the Raptors, like the bit of his time with them, because it was a very small part of this whole All the Smoke episode. He's very much talking about Vanderbilt. He's talking about his playing days. He's talking about his story coming up in North Carolina and going to UNC and deciding to go and be coached by Dean Smith. See, this is the thing. He has some amazing influences from his whole entire career. He was around so many important coaches like Dean Smith, Avery Johnson, all kinds of different people, that he has a really vast knowledge base. And he's such a smart guy. I don't hear him in interviews that much. So I didn't realize how intelligent he is and just really how smart he is. And that's something that's very attractive to me also. And you know what else? He's a singer. This guy can sing apparently. He's like an R&B singer, and he has actually sang the national anthem before games at NBA games before. Jerry Stackhouse. He'll come out and sing the US anthem. I want to see him come up here and sing some "Oh Canada." Although we don't want to do that. We don't want to make a joke out of him as the head coach that he's singing the anthem also, but he could. That's the thing everybody needs to know, that Jerry has the pipes to sing the anthem if we need him to. If Tranquata can't come, if we can't get Doug Tranquata, well, maybe we get Jerry Stackhouse to sing the anthem instead. But yeah, learning more and more about Jerry is like, yeah, this dude is hard nosed. This dude will punch his teammate out in practice because he cares that much. Let's just put it that way. He's known for caring a lot, and that's what we need. G saying, I want our next coach to take what Ime Udoka said personally. Well, I don't know if they'll take it personally, but we should take it personally, definitely. I bet you Masai's not too happy about it. Like, what the fuck, bro? You're not like, listen, I was gonna, why you do this? It's kind of like how Masai would be towards him. Why would you say this? Why you have to say this? Like, seriously, there's no reason. These people dumping on us for no fucking reason. They don't have to. Seriously, you think that Houston's going to be more attractive in 4 or 5 years? You go ahead then, Udoka, because I don't think so. May God send Victor Wembanyama to San Antonio. Let's just put it that way. That's going to be a big factor on whether you're going to have a good time there or not. Well, we'll see who wins the lottery and see who gets that big Frenchman first. And then we'll see how things go with that. I think that's part of the reason why he wanted to go there too. Is a huge reason is they have a huge chance to get Victor Wembanyama, and that's attractive to him. Now, if they don't get him and he goes to the Spurs or the Pistons, I'm all about that. In some ways, I don't want him on the Pistons. The Spurs is the perfect landing place for Victor, in my opinion, because we want Popovich to have him. Let's see. Mike saying Mitchell cost the Cavs the series. They pushed Mitchell to be the offense selector, and he failed hard. Doubled Garland, and ISO'd Mitchell was the win for the Knicks. 2 playmaking guards is key. Fred VanVleet, shooting guard. This really, Mitchell is not a winner. This is what I'm telling you. This is why Utah cleared house last summer. They knew that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are not winning players. They're not championship kind of players. They're great players and they're regular season guys, but they don't have it for doing what is important in the important season, the postseason. And we see now both their teams are out in the first round. Gobert with Minnesota and Mitchell out with Cleveland. And that's what I'm saying. These guys are losers in some ways. And you go ahead, have Donovan Mitchell be your guy. He'll get you all kinds of fancy scoring, but he doesn't play that gritty playoff basketball that wins games like the New York Knicks. And that's the difference right now. These pretty boys that like to play fancy basketball during the season, like Giannis and Donovan, well, you see what happens in the playoffs. It's a totally different season. And hard-nosed teams like Miami and New York, they survive in that environment. And that's why we need to be like them and not be like those other teams. We need to be more like Miami Heat, New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics. Those are the teams that are the kind of teams that will go far in the playoffs. And these great regular season teams with these young rosters and like Giannis and stuff, they won the championship 2 years ago. And I'm wondering, is that a fluke that the Milwaukee Bucks won that championship in some ways? Did Scott Foster help y'all? Because Chris Paul? I think that is what happened. Let's see. Nako saying, I may also kind of diss Detroit. Do the Rockets really have a better young core than the Pistons? I would still expect Cade to have the biggest ceiling out of those players. Nurse is going to the Bucks. Well, if they fire Budenholzer, there's no guarantees they're going to fire Budenholzer. This is one bad year, and he's done really well. In fact, I would think that he's ingratiated himself a little bit more than this. Now, if Bucks fans are really calling for his head, then maybe they could. Maybe they are upset with him more than I know. But, I mean, they had the best fucking record for the season. And sure, a first-round exit is bad, but, he kind of gets a gimme, right? Because he hasn't really had that much failure. Nick has had a weird kind of tenure with us, and the failure this year was very pronounced. I'm not going to say Budenholzer's year was a failure. The playoffs were, sure. But in some ways, this year wasn't a failure. And if they fire him, that may be more stupid than us firing Nick. Some people are already saying we're stupid for firing Nick. Well, I would say that Milwaukee's stupid for firing Budenholzer if they do end up doing it, because in some ways he kind of has had success consistently And it's not this. This is just like a first round exit. These things happen. So if they want to overreact and fire Budenholzer, you go ahead, and maybe we'll put him on our interview list, and he'll come and see Masai and see if he wants the Toronto job. But yeah, you know what? I agree. I think that the Pistons are in much better shape than the Rockets. There's a couple of things in their favor. They are more organized, and they have guys that are actually showing core like discipline and playing together. The youngsters like Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, those guys look like they're more of a core and a real team than the Rockets. The Rockets are just an assorted group of young, athletic, awesome players that really don't play team ball. They're not fundamentally good. So you go ahead, Ime. I think it's going to be night and day coaching the Rockets and coaching the Celtics. You're going to find that everything is unorganized. These guys aren't bought in. They're going to be all kinds of not professionals, unlike Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And yeah, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be pulling your hair out, and you may be so stressed out, you may have to go get some side lovers or something like that. I don't know. This is what I'm thinking is going to happen in Houston. Maybe things were easy and rosy because you stepped in a really good situation in Boston. Well, Houston's a whole other kit and caboodle. And just because you're a magic man, you're going to come in and fix everything? No, I don't think so. Now, you could try and do things with these youngsters and get them more disciplined, but that's going to be part of the fight. Well, how long is it going to be until one of them tunes you out or hates you? And then there's a feud between the coach and one of the players. They've already been doing this. They did this with Silas this year. So when are you going to get a feud with one of your young Rockets and make it a dumpster fire? It's probably going to happen pretty quick. Watch. I'll bet you Udoka may rub one of the young Rockets the wrong way very early. Who would it be? It could be Smith. Could be whatchamacallit, Josh Christopher. It could be any of these guys. Any of these youngsters could be out of pocket, and then all of a sudden a big, huge dumpster fire down there. I would have more faith that the Pistons players would listen to me and follow me than the Rockets. So you go ahead, Udoka. You think that's a better situation? All right, let's keep going. David's saying the Cavs suck. That's right. Trust in the Raptors, freak. What did he tell you at the beginning of the season about the Cleveland Cavaliers? That they're pretenders. Everybody's saying, oh, the Cavs are good this year. Oh, the Cavs have such a good record. They suck. I knew they would suck. I knew this would happen to them. I said this consistently the whole entire year. Everybody was falling in love with the new look Cavs and the new team the Cavs are. And I was one of the only people that said, I don't believe in them. I don't trust them at all. Yeah, you go ahead and see what gets with two little baby guards, Darius and Donovan. Yeah, you go see what you're going to get with your defense in the postseason. Yeah, you'll find out. Fiercely saying Cleveland cadavers in Bucks locker room after the game. Dead. Yes, dead. Carlos here. Sup, fella freaks? Looks like no one believes in the current Raps roster other than Masai in the front office. What do you guys think? Do you have faith on the current roster? Yes, I do. Because the people that matter have faith in it. And that's the people that are on the team, like Chris Boucher, Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Precious Achua. Chris said that yesterday, that listen, it was a really weird season where they had a lot of conflict. But the one thing that happened, and this is the amazing thing, and I love that Chris said this, is that in all the controversy and all the confusion and all the losing, what they happened was they hunkered down as a team and they got closer, is what Chris said. That this season of adversity for the Raptors actually allowed them to have stronger bonds, and that they're more tighter together as a group than going apart. It actually had the opposite effect of what people thought, where they were turning on each other. Everybody thought Freddie and Scotty didn't get along or this and this. No, the truth is that they actually, from what Chris said, they got tighter as a group in the losing. And the thing was, they didn't turn on each other. They very much hated the losing and they didn't like it. But at the same time, they got more like closer, is what he said. They're a better, tighter team because of this losing season. In some ways, they're forged together in the fire of the sad, like losing. And that I like hearing that. That's much better than hearing that, yeah, they're not together. And Chris said they are all together. They really do enjoy being on the same team together. And that's what matters. The players believing in each other in the group. And they have consistently done that the last 2 years, that they do really believe in the talent that they have together. It's just it wasn't used correctly. Chris said that yesterday. He said we just weren't used correctly, whether it was the bench, whether it was certain things about what we were doing on the court. He didn't really come right at Nick. In fact, he was very nice to Nick in a lot of ways in his podcast. But he did really kind of point out that there were failures in certain things. Obviously, the things saying about not playing the bench. And then there were other things that kind of like he alluded to about what we were doing that just didn't like work. So they believe, Masai believes, I believe, and I believe they're right. Because listen, if you're a scout, if you understand basketball, you can look at our team, just like Paul Pierce did, and realize we're just one big player away from competing for the championship. And they're exactly damn right. So we start selling our parts as sellers and dismantling it. Well, we're not closer to the championship, are we? We're moving away from it. So that's what I'm saying. Masai can make one big deal this summer, get a new head coach, and we could have a whole different look next year and be kicking everybody's ass. And that's the thing that people don't realize. That's why we have faith in them, is because first of all, they have faith in each other. Masai has faith in them, and that says a lot. You know what the fuck? He's going to put his faith in the people that aren't going to get it together? No, he believes in them because he knows their makeup. He knows how talented they are. He looked at their individual numbers. They all progressed individually. We just didn't progress as a team. That's the coach's fault. And the coach is changing now. And we're going to have, I'll bet you there'll be some new blood, a new player that comes to our team that will reinvigorate them. You know, one of the things that Chris talked about was Kawhi Leonard. He talked very much about playing on the same team as Kawhi builds out this feeling that you want to win, that you're going to win, that you get an extra confidence. And in some ways, we may need a leader on this team that's a little bit more like Kawhi or Kyle, that brings a swagger to the team in general when they hit the court, knowing that when you have this guy on your side, you have a better chance to win and you go out more. That was some of the things that Chris said, that when he said that, he expressed that. I was like, damn, he's right. You know, when you have somebody like Kawhi that you line up next to, or Jimmy Butler or Kyle Lowry, you feel more confident going into that battle because you have this dog in the fight that's next to you, and it brings the rest of the guys up. So in some ways, what we need is a number one that's going to bring everybody up. I love you, Pascal, but you're not this dude, bro. You're not instilling the confidence like a Kawhi would on our team, that we're going out to battle with Kawhi and we can beat anybody. And we need that. We need that from our number one guy. And that's why I feel like Masai may make a big deal this summer, and bring in a big, huge name. And that'll have that kind of effect like a Kawhi Leonard would on our team. Now, I don't know who the name is and exactly what the scenario is, but we'll see how this landscape in the offseason develops with postseason exits and people maybe being unhappy on teams. Just like Masai said, the free agency, whatever, it's about somebody being disgruntled and wanting to get the fuck out of a team and being taking advantage of that opportunity to go get somebody like Kawhi Leonard because of a situation like that. So he's going to be looking for those kind of situations this summer. And that's really how we could do it and get right back into the championship picture next season. Get a good new coach, Jerry Stackhouse, hopefully, and go out and make a big monumental move. You know, when Stack said that he really thought he had the job, you could tell he was hurt. Like in the whole interview with all the smoke, that one point when he said, I really thought I had the Toronto job, you could feel the pain in his voice. It was kind of like he was rejected. And I hope he doesn't hold that against Masai. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he will, because he knows he's smart. He can circle back and get this job still as the next guy in line. That would be fantastic, because in some ways he's kind of biting at the chomp in some ways to be an NBA coach, I'll bet. And the opportunity may be coming to him very soon. So, but he has to weigh the whole thing he's built in Vandy in doing this. And hopefully he will make the choice to come here if Masai offers him the job, because I love the idea of Jerry Stackhouse being our coach. He was my number one pick when Casey got fired. That summer, I was saying the same damn thing. Hire Jerry Stackhouse. Hire Jerry Stackhouse. And then when we hired Nick Nurse, I was kind of like, what the fuck? Why are we hiring Nick Nurse? He was one of the assistants underneath Casey. I was like, I want a new, fresh approach. And I was kind of in the Stackhouse house. I was never in the Nurse house in the beginning, but Nurse won me over very quickly with a win streak to start his coaching career. He won right away in 2018. And then, of course, he won the championship. So it was like, well, I'm glad we got Nick Nurse instead of Stackhouse. But that summer of 2018, I very much was in the camp of Stackhouse, that I wanted Masai to hire Jerry to be our next head coach when he hired Nick. So it's kind of like we're circling back to that moment right now. And I'm all about it in some ways. I'd really like to see what happens. And like Monique, we want to know what happens sooner than later, because but in some ways it benefits Masai to wait and see more of these exits from the playoffs, what happens? David's saying, no, we have no faith. We just come here at 9:30 to waste our time, bitch, and feel sorry for ourselves. He's being sarcastic. No, I'm serious. Like, I have total faith in this roster. I know the perception around the NBA is that it's mid, and MA thinks that too, but he's fucking wrong. Like, seriously, we have plus kind of guys in a lot of positions, and we have depth. It's just that our depth is very premium to like 8. And then after that, it's a little, And in some ways, you got to really understand how to use it the right way. He made a mistake. Whatever. Udoka, you made a mistake. Honestly, I'm glad you're not coming here because in some ways, you'd be a headache and a circus all on its own. For the pluses and the minuses, they're pretty even in some ways. You could be a huge, huge reward, but the risk with you is very high also. So Trevor's saying, shout out the former Raptor Kyle Lowry and the Heat for putting the Milwaukee Bucks out. What a game. Yes, Trevor. Fantastic stuff. The postseason is a different season. You could be all shiny and awesome in the regular season, but yeah, you played that whole 82 season and then you go out like this, Bucks. Man, Giannis is looking like a soft leader. This is what I'm saying. You can be all NBA, the best player in the league, but if you don't have that Jordan edge, you don't have certain tenacity and dog in you, you will lose that dog in Jimmy Butler. And that's something that should be valued more and more in people. Like, that's what I'm saying. People like Jimmy Butler win championships. And that is why when you're sussing out who your players should be on your team, you want more players like Jimmy Butler on your team for sure. And that's why Miami's successful because they got a lot of guys like him. Bam Adebayo played very well last night too. We cannot discredit him. Showing up big late in the game, scoring alongside Jimmy Butler to make things happen. And these guys did this with Tyler Hero with a broken hand on the sideline. So Miami's had their injuries to overcome also. Spoelstra absolutely outcoached Budenholzer last night. Fiercely saying so much for Dragic's higher ambitions. Hilarious. Him and Jay Crowder. Some people are making fun of Jay Crowder because he was on Miami for a little while. And then he went to Phoenix, and now he's on the Bucks, and he thought he had a chance with the Bucks. Well, you didn't, Jay. Higher aspirations. Hilarious. Mo's saying, we will take Udoka's comments personal, G. Don't you worry. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to do that. Why would you do that? Now we're going to really want to beat up on the Rockets next season. Yeah, you come see us next year, MA. You're not going to have Jason and Jalen with you. It's going to be a different thing. You think you're not just magic. You're not going to make the Rockets just functional. Trust me. Sue's saying, good morning, everyone. The Heat winning last night shows that anything can happen. Heat had a season like ours, very inconsistent, and we had their number this year. Shows you anything can happen in the playoffs. Haha, I thought the same thing, Fiercey. And also, you said it, Mo. We will. Sue, you're exactly right. Play it again, Sue. Check out Sue's reaction channel on YouTube. She watches videos and reacts to them. Fantastic YouTube channel. This is true. Like, in some ways, Miami's in our spot. Like, they beat the Bulls. Like, if we had beaten the Bulls instead of losing the way we did, and we played Miami and we beat Miami, we would have been playing Milwaukee, and we would have had the possibility to do what Miami did. In some ways. See, that's the crazy thing. It's true. People may have thought I was crazy like a month or two ago when I was saying if the Raptors can just sneak into the playoffs and get a spot, anything is possible. Well, this is the evidence right here. What the Miami Heat did to the Milwaukee Bucks last night is exactly the evidence of that. That if we could have beaten the Bulls, gotten the second game against the Heat, beaten the Heat, we could have been that team putting Milwaukee out last night. And that's how close it is. And you're exactly right, Sue. They were a mid team all year. They had the struggles. We played Miami very well this year. In fact, we kicked their ass and won the season series. It's not like they were like super, they have a different mode in the playoffs, obviously. But still, these were all parity teams that are very close in levels of strength. And we see it's who wants it more. It's who wants to go out there and take it more. Like Jimmy Butler wants it more. That gets it. If you don't want it, like you're going to be like the Raptors and you're going to be out in the play-in if you don't want it. Well, they didn't want it. Their coach didn't want it. The leadership of the coach led down to the players and they didn't really want it. Well, Miami really wants it. There's not much time on the clock for some of those oldsters on that team. They need to go now. And meanwhile, our guys can maybe make a mistake of not wanting it as much and losing the play-in game to the Bulls and DeAndre DeRozan. But the Heat is now or never. Because it's a South Beach retirement home, and they better go get it now because they don't now. They're going to be 1 year older next year, and they got to go get it. All right, let's see. G says she loves it, Mo. Yeah, I love it too. Talk that trash to Udoka. Go get him, Monique Lawrence. Tell him, yeah, we didn't want you here anyway, you old womanizer. Fun guy saying, laugh out loud. G, did you get banned or something? No, G has like a few different accounts. So he has like, I think there's like 5 or 6 G accounts. There's a one that's modded, and then there was like one that was hacked. But yeah, there's a couple different G's on here. Not all the G's have mods, and that's why he doesn't have a mod. Fiercely saying trade deadline actually was beneficial for the Knicks and the Lakers. Yeah, they picked up a couple extra players that really helped out. I think the Lakers especially. You know, they're trying to set up the Lakers to win. I'm really happy that Memphis won that game, their last game, but they're going to try and set them up to win. And some of these games are really bad shape for people like this Kings, the Grizzlies, and the Hawks, obviously in big trouble. The Hawks are playing tonight. The referees are for the Hawks game tonight with the Celtics in Atlanta. Mark Davis is the crew chief, Curtis Blair, the referee, and Jason Goebel is the umpire. All 3 of them favor the Celtics tonight. But this has been the case for most of these games with the Hawks and the Celtics. The refs have very much favored the Celtics this whole time. And, well, they're still scrapping and keeping alive with Trae Young doing amazing stuff. So let's see if they can extend it another game and make it a 7-game series. I'm sure Philadelphia would love that. So go ahead, go Hawks. Extend the series so Philly can wait and sit around. Now, with Sacramento having to play Game 6 and Golden State after losing last night, this is really bad. The Warriors are set up to close this series out against the Kings, who really played a good fight in this first round. And I want them to still win. If you can just fucking put the Warriors out, please. But this is going to be tough. They got to beat the Warriors in Golden State for sure in Game 6. And that may be a tall order. Magic Johnson's already calling it that the Warriors are going to win Game 6 and put the Kings out in the first round. That's a tough position to be in. A similar kind of thing with the Lakers and the Grizzlies. They're going to have to go to the Lakers arena and play Game 6, and the Grizzlies are going to have to win on that home court against LeBron and them. Now, LeBron and them look more like the Lakers normally did in the last game. Really, really not much from LeBron. He was having a hard time himself, and it was more Davis carrying them, but nobody else showing up, and the more balanced contributions by a lot of Grizzlies overpower the Lakers and beat them. Now, they need to continue to do this. The strength of the Grizzlies is how many good players they have and how they can all contribute in different ways all at once. Whereas the Lakers, they may have only like 2 guys playing really well, and they're LeBron and AD, and nobody else is playing that well otherwise. So it's still a series where the Grizzlies can win it. They've just got to continue to go in this direction. And the trends that are showing is that the Lakers are kind of rolling over a little bit. In the last game, they did not play well, and the Grizzlies absolutely dominated them. So hopefully that can continue in this series, because I don't want to see the Lakers go any further or the Warriors. I want them both out. Get them out and let the Kings and the Grizzlies advance. So we'll have to see what happens with those 2 series. They're in tough spots. The Game 6 is in the wrong arena. That'll be very interesting to see what happens. Let's see. Smooth saying Jerry S. or Kenny A. Jerry being a high-level player in the past may get the respect of the roster. Kenny Atkinson having the experience of Brooklyn and building that culture is a benefit as well. So Smooth Brown Man's top two candidates are Jerry Stackhouse and Kenny Atkinson. You know, I can't disagree with, Kenny Atkinson's a weird one. I'm not totally like that thrilled with him as far as like, he's not kind of a name that would move me or kind of make the dial kind of like, oh yeah, that makes me really excited for next year. And that's part of it, is like, in some ways we want to get enthusiasm from the Raptors fan base to be excited and have hope for next season. And if they just hire Adrian Griffin or like even Kenny Atkinson, I'll be kind of like, that's a meh move. And in some ways we want a big move, Masai. We want a little bit of a splashy like move like Udoka would have been if we had hired him. Not maybe on that scale. And Jerry's along that. He is a very high level player. This man averaged 30 points in a season in the NBA, Jerry Stackhouse. He was very much playing with greats at different times in his career. Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Grant Hill. There's a very much a list of guys that he was very familiar with because he played very closely with them. And that kind of knowledge base and that experience is very, very attractive, because he can tell all kinds of stories. I mean, he could be in practice and teaching Coloco and Delano and Scotty about a Michael Jordan story and say, well, when I was playing against Michael in 2002, or, stuff like this, he can just, that stuff is gold. That stuff is stuff that perks young players' ears up, and they really like, this dude's bona fide. I respect him, and I want to learn more from him. That kind of stuff. And that's kind of really why I really like him. It's true. Kenny Atkinson had a lot of success with Brooklyn. In fact, he was the guy who kind of built that Brooklyn team before the big three showed up, and they traded everybody away, mortgaged that whole team concept. When they had Jarrett Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, and they were starting with the young Nicholas Claxton, Joe Harris, that team was really Kenny Atkinson's team. And he did pretty good with getting them to respectability. It was kind of like what Casey did for us, was they brought him out of the mud and brought him up to a playoff level. So in some ways, that's attractive about Kenny Atkinson, is that he's shown that he can build up a team from the lower levels of the standings into being more of a playoff team, because that's really what he did with Brooklyn. All right, let me go. All right, let's keep going. Mike's saying fiercely facts. And in 2019, we did make the Gasol trade. So finishing moves, yes. I think the Knicks did the best move in the summer, though, with Brunson signing. And the Lakers' problem was Russ. So, yeah, trade deadline. Yeah, they got rid of a problem that cleared up some of the problems with their team. But not only just that, they did on the down low get some important players like Vanderbilt, Mo Bamba. They did pick up a couple of side pieces on their bench that have been useful in certain ways for the Lakers also. But yeah, that signing of Jalen Brunson is looking like the biggest move from last summer in some ways. That not only that, they went and got his buddy Josh Hart in the middle of the season also. And I'm telling you, the synergy between them is part of the reason what's driving the Knicks to their success this postseason. They're best friends. They're from college. They were so happy to be around each other. Last night, they're in their press conference, and Jalen's getting interviewed, and Josh is eating wings next to him on the podium. And Jalen turns to him and said, "Don't ever do that again. Stop eating wings while I'm trying to talk to the press." That's pretty funny. And of course, Josh Hart has the New York symbol braided into his hair. These guys are for real with this, taking this New York culture. And it's not even Julius Randle. Like, he's important, and he's like a scorer, and he does a lot of important things, but he's the kind of not necessary, as evidenced by him getting benched at key times in games, because he can be a distraction at times too and hurt you. But it really is like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickley, Mitchell Robinson. They've got an interesting team there. And Thibodeau is the important part of it too, because he's a hard-nosed coach, and he coached them a hard-nosed way against the Cavs, and that's why they won. So he has to get a lot of credit also as their coach. He did a good job. Monica's saying, most fans I spoke to think Adrian Griffin is going to Detroit. I think that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. Like, he's not too flashy, and it'd be a good little starter team for him to be a head coach at first. I don't think that he actually did. He has ties with Dwayne Casey from Dallas, but he was a player at that time, I believe, when he was around Dallas with Casey. So he wasn't actually coaching at that time, but he was a player around him at that time. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what's happening. Adrian's still showing signs that he's showing Toronto Raptors stuff on his social media places. That's something we got to look at. Like, go look at Trevor Gleason's Instagram or something like that. See if he still says Toronto Raptors on his thing. We got to check on all our assistant coaches and see who's still in the fold. One guy we do know that's still in the fold, and we're saying this, is Jamal McGlure. And in fact, Chris had a funny story about Jamal and Carabana. He said he went to Carabana one year with Jamal, and he went crazy. He's like off the chain wild man in a good way, as Chris put it. And that he said when he gets in his island culture, he's very fun to be around. We knew this about the great parade marshal, Jamal McGlure, being ahead of some of the Carabana dancers every summer out there at the lakeshore when they do the parade and stuff like that. So Chris is funny. Chris is fun. Like, it's so fun to hear what Chris says. I want a little bit more about what Chev said the other day. You're so off point on this, because you really, I went and watched your apology, and it wasn't that sincere, honestly. And then the other part of it is it's weird and annoying is he's upset with Chris doing the podcast because he feels like it takes away from his tenacity and his ability to play hard on the court, that it causes distractions, all this kind of stuff. I think that's kind of bullshit. I mean, if distractions by podcasts are such a big deal, then why the fuck did the Warriors win the championship last year while Draymond was podcasting in halftime and stuff like that? Like, seriously, get with the times. I know that you think that this stuff in the past, an old school head like us would think that this kind of stuff divulges things and makes things go bad for teams, like any kind of competitive edge. And you don't even want to have any kind of podcast or anything going on. But in some ways, if you really watched Hustle Play, because I don't think you do, Chev, if you actually watched his episodes, you would see it's very, very innocent and it has not caused any waves or controversy from it. In fact, it's more likely to put fires out and like stop controversy than cause more. So I think in some ways, your argument for why you shouldn't do the podcast because you think it causes a competitive disadvantage is completely wrong. In some ways, it may actually fix some of the problems that we have because he's putting the information out there in a truthful way. And then people understand, and the whole world of perception is important in today's NBA. And in some ways, the truth comes from the players' mouths. It helps with the fan nation understanding the truth. And that's why I think that it's the information of his Hustle podcast is very valuable and actually the opposite of how you think about it, because it can actually put fires out and help the team more than, he's very smart about it. In fact, they probably edit it too. There may be parts that he talks about with Mike Roach that they're like watching later and like, you know what, we probably shouldn't leave that Scotty story in, or we probably shouldn't have that part in there. And they cut it up. So I'll bet you there are parts of it that they cut out that they were like, you know what, we vetted this and this content and this part of this content, we can't put this out there because this may not be good for the team. So I'm pretty sure they do this and protect that from that. So Shep, watch all the episodes and you tell me if you think that Hustle Play by Chris Boucher is a detrimental thing for the Raptors. I don't think you'll find that when you watch it. You'll actually see it may be very much the opposite. So, all right, let's keep going. Fiercely saying, I thought Ime and Masai were tight. He was probably pissed Masai gave him all sorts of clauses if he worked for us. Hide your wives. Fiercely. I thought they were tight too. But, in some ways, once again, Ime Udoka is going to just disrespect us like a lot of Americans do. There's a lot of NBA people. It's like, in some ways, that's just what it is. When people say shit like this, they make me realize they're more likely to not respect Canada or not respect Toronto in general. And I think that's when we say, okay, well, we didn't want this person anyway. And that's why we want to find this out before they even come here and they take the job. Like if he took the job and he really on the down low kind of didn't really respect us and he was doing the job, that would be awful. That's why we really have to make sure this person's bought into our culture, will be loyal to it, and will stick around for the long term if it really gets successful. That's the thing. We can't have somebody like, we don't want Jerry to show up and be like, this is a stepping stone job for me to get a different NBA job. We don't want him thinking that way. We want him thinking, this is the job. I want to become a Popovich for San Antonio. Like Popovich for San Antonio in Toronto. I want to be like Kerr is in Golden State. We want a coach that wants to be here for like a decade because they do a really, really good job. And we don't want a coach that's going to come in and just want to pad their resume for like a head coaching job and then want to go get a different job somewhere else. So that's part of the thinking with this job search right now is really we got to think about what the motives are of the person that's coming in and what they are long-term and what they'll stick around if other things happen. Like we thought Nick was solid, but we can see he got 2 by clutch. And it changed. We really thought Nick Nurse was going to be our coach next year. Chris thought it. Fred thought it. Masai probably thought it. And then Nick went and fucked it up. He went and fucked it up. Let's see. Monique saying, I didn't want Udoka anyway. Yeah, in some ways I didn't either. He was attractive. And there were certain things about him. I was pumping him up real high this weekend as far as being a top candidate. But, this is the way it should be. And this is probably for the best. G saying, fun guy, not here. Only on the other guys' lives. New account, hence no wrench. My stuff was hacked through my security system. So I deleted and changed all my passwords and accounts. There you go. So it's the same G. It's just he had to go through and change everything. Space Cadet saying, I wonder how Ime will feel if the Milwaukee job is vacant. All he had to do was wait. Good riddance, loser. I love the venom of Space Cadet on this one. Yeah, listen, I don't know. Maybe he thinks that they're a mid 5 seed also. Maybe he's talking about them also. Who knows? Yeah, that's the thing. Well, in some ways, Houston had to pull the trigger because he knew that we were coming for them. And in some ways, maybe that is good. There is a lot of confusion now that Nick has cut loose. This is a side effect of things. People like Budenholzer will be looked at and scrutinized more, and because there's somebody out there, the Bucks fans may be coming with pitchforks and torches for Budenholzer because they see Nick Nurse is available. And this could happen with a lot of the different teams right now, like Tyronn Lue and the Clippers. Obviously with the Lakers, if they go out, Darvin Ham is very much going to have this kind of conversation around him also. So in some ways, us firing our coach is actually strategically good because it causes kind of dissension and kind of like, ooh, that guy's available. Do we need to assess our coach, and maybe we'll fire our coach and get Nick Nurse? So in some ways, it's kind of like, hey, all right. It's kind of there's a benefit to it because everybody's going to reassess their stuff, and they may be taking that very like attractive possible open head coach, Nick Nurse coming in. So that's an interesting part of it all. Fiercely saying at Mike, laugh out loud. Someone wrote Giannis to Toronto, and another responded he would fit in perfectly with us since he keeps missing free throws. Yikes! Next season, let's change the narrative, Raps, for sure, for sure. I mean, it is stupid to be out of the playoffs because of free throws. The Raptors are guilty, and now Giannis is. Possible MVP candidate for the league can't make fucking free throws in the most important game of the season. That is horrible. 10 of the 23. He missed 13 and made 10. And it's not like you can blame anybody else on that team for the poor free throw shooting. They all shot better than him. He is very specifically, individually in trouble for this. Now, the Raptors, we had like 4-5 guys that missed a lot of free throws. Siakam, Fred, Scotty, OG. They all missed their free throws in that last game. But on that one, it's all Giannis. It's all Giannis from last night. Woo-hoo-hoo. Smooth saying Houston is Cowboys and Indians. Worst managed team in the NBA. No thank you to Mike B. He's horrible. You don't like Budenholzer. Yeah, okay. Well, I want Stackhouse. I don't really want Budenholzer either, but it would be really weird if we like did a coach swap with Milwaukee all of a sudden. It'd be really weird. Carlos saying Stack or Patrick Mutombo. New blood as a head coach, not just recycling other head coaches. I can get behind this. I want new, fresh ideas. I want cutting edge. I want somebody who's like really got something going as a youngster that has not been tapped into. So that it'd be kind of like a Nick Nurse effect, where all of a sudden we make a big, huge, big time NBA coach. In some ways, Nick Nurse was a developed coach, just like a player. We developed him as a coach under Casey, and then he came up the big time, and he exploded. And now he's in the likes of like Spoelstra and Kerr as top coach in the league. This is something that is an accomplishment by the Raptors. We made this dude into who he is. And in some ways, now he's way more attractive. Well, who's the next guy that we can make into a creme de la creme top level NBA coach that nobody knows about yet? Nick Nurse was that guy 5 years ago. And now we got a chance to make a new one. And let's see who it is. Mike saying, Fiercey, hide your wives. That's interesting. Yeah, free throws are key. I would welcome Giannis. Hang on, it jumped. Oh, wow. You guys talk a lot. Okay, I would welcome Giannis here. We can definitely help develop that mid-range he's been needing for the last number of years. Spicy up. Well, I don't know who we get for who or what. And I don't think Giannis is actually going anywhere. They're not going to overcompensate that much. They'll get rid of the coach, but they're not going to get rid of their franchise, like once in a lifetime player. No, Milwaukee, he's safe there. Raptor Truth Teller is here. Good to see you, Raptor Truth Teller. Check out Raptor Truth Teller's YouTube channel. I see that you had a channel. I saw you subscribe, and I was like, oh, I'm going to come check out his channel. Very new channel. I'm all about everybody's Raptors content creators and stuff like that. So welcome, Raptors Truth Teller. Ime was right. We got ourselves in this situation, so we can't blame him for going another direction. Plus, Ime is not even a good coach. He was using Steven's playbook. Okay, first of all, you may be a truth teller, and that's fine. We do tell the truth here too, but we do like to spin things positively and stay on the positive tip. Now, we don't just denigrate or insult our team for no reason. So I'll just give you that just in the future. Now, I don't think Ime is right. I think that the perception that we're a mid team is actually kind of bullshit. And a lot of people in Raptors Nation are trying to push that. I think it's completely wrong. I see what Masai sees, that we have a very talented team. And just like Paul Pierce said, we're one piece away from being a championship level team. So I don't like sullying or like putting down our talent level because it's actually inaccurate when somebody does that. So I can't get behind you on your first part. Let's see. I don't fucking give Ma excuses for taking the Houston job and insulting us yesterday. Fuck all that shit. That's not what we do here at Raptor Free Channel. You can do that on your channel, but we don't do that here. And you're putting down Ma too. It's like everything you said here is just negative. You're lashing out at us. You're lashing out and saying that Ma is like, I'm not surprised he did that. And now you're lashing out at Ma himself. Well, I don't mind that part. And in some ways, you're right. That Stevens created the system in Boston, and he was set up for success. But he was an extra pizzazz to it, as far as the way he was a leader and the way he got the players to buy into him. Now, will he get those Houston players to buy into him like the Celtics did that year that he coached them? Well, that's the big question mark. We'll have to see. I'm not. I don't think he will. I think there's going to be some dissension there. G saying Scotty's dunk is up for votes as dunk of the year. Go vote, everyone. That's right. They have silly like highlight clip like awards, and Scotty's big dunk on Vucevic against Chicago is in the running. That's a fantastic dunk. There's a lot of power. He really gets full body on Vooch, and it was fun. It was one of the best dunks of the year for sure. And I like that it's getting highlighted by NBA in the main vote. Hopefully, yeah, everybody go vote for Scotty's dunk. Not that this is very important, but in some ways we want bragging rights and we want to get some shine for Scott. Let's get him this dunk of the year. So go vote, Raptors fans. Is there a link, G? Maybe if you could find the link to go and vote for it, post it in the chat. I know, wait, you don't have a mod, so you can't do it. Let me mod you real quick, and then you can do it. I got to add him as a moderator, and then boom, you can post a link, please, to that vote so we can all know where to go. Fun guy saying, wow, G, crazy. I watched that Knicks game. He was just smiling the whole way through as the Knicks knocked out these frauds and their fraud wannabe rookie of the year. Yeah, I mean, seriously, everybody was Cleveland Nation was coming at Scotty because we lost in the play-in, and they're talking up Evan Mobley, and they're trying to say, oh, this rookie of the year looks so bad now for Scotty, and they're so full of shit. I mean, you go tell me what Evan Mobley did in the game last night. Come on, in the elimination game last night. Yeah, all right, come on now. No, the rookie of the year is Scotty Barnes, and rightfully so. And this year was just a really weird year for the Raptors. When we see exactly who you are, Cavs, and we're not, whatever. It's funny to see the Knicks beat them. I'm like so happy for them in some ways. Like when that happened, when I saw the Cavs went out last night and the Knicks had advanced the next round, I was celebrating in some ways. I feel so bad for Knicks Nation because they've had such horrible sadness for so long that them getting a shine and having this run right now is fantastic. In fact, if they went all the way and won the championship, I would not be upset. Seriously, Knicks fan, you actually got a Raptor fan on your side right now. And I'd be fun. It'd be fun to see the New York Knicks rise up and put out like the Sixers and the Celtics. I want to see this shit. Come on, you got to beat the Heat first. Oh my gosh. All right, let's see. Mike's saying the Knicks won the offensive boards in the four games they won. The one they lost, the Cavs won the offensive boards battle. Nick exposed the Cavs and how to beat them in a sense. Tibbs planned it right. Yeah. That's the thing. People are like copying everybody. You find the game plan for how to beat the Nuggets. All of a sudden, they go on a 5-game losing streak because Nick Nurse showed everybody how to beat Jokic and the Nuggets. This is how it's been. This year, it was used against us. Everybody figured out how to beat our defense, and it was part of the reason why we're mid this season. Is that Nick Nurse was not like changing things or being cutting edge enough, and everybody caught up to us. Well, people caught up to the Cavs, like the Knicks and Thibodeau figured out a game plan that was sound to beat them consistently. And Cavaliers did not adjust, and Cavaliers could not make the changes. And the Knicks beat them over the head with it and dominated them and won. Go Knicks, go! I'm actually going for the Knicks right now. This is crazy. G saying the Cavs gave away 3 unprotected picks and 2 swap picks to play 5 more games than the Raptors. See, G's laughing at him. Yeah, I can't get behind. I can get behind all of this, making fun of the Bucks and the Cavs today. I'm all about it, and to a certain degree, Bucks, but very especially the Cavs. I'd love to make fun of them. Raptor Truth Teller is saying Giannis's post-game speech was very touching. It was touching. It's like he wanted to touch the reporter with his fist. Oh man, it was touching. Yeah, I thought it was funny that he brought up Michael Jordan. Seriously, bro, you just got beat by the closest thing to Michael Jordan in the league right now, Jimmy Butler. And bringing up Michael Jordan's hilarious to me. Giannis, in some ways, he just epitomizes the problem with today's superstars. Is they're all flash. They're all Vince Carter and not enough Michael Jordan. And that is part of the big problem. Phil Jackson said recently Vince Carter just didn't have that X factor. And that's why he never won. Well, that's what I'm talking about, that X factor. That thing that is absolutely like, I'm such a competitor. I have to win at all costs. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to kill you until I win. That's Jimmy Butler. And Giannis is not that. Giannis is like, I'm a kid from overseas. I had a very tough life, but then I grew and then I got into the NBA. And I'm just happy to be here, guys. And I love being at the All-Star weekend and smiling. And I'm here with my brothers and stuff like that. This motherfucker ain't there for the right reasons. He's just there to be in the NBA. This motherfucker is not there for the same reason that Jimmy Butler is there. And that is why the Miami Heat are going to the second round and the Milwaukee Bucks aren't. Yeah. Very touching. Very touching. Very touching. Space Cadet saying, Udoka and Dragic, notice how everyone in their higher aspirations club is an asshole. Woo, I'm giving you a dunk because that is a great observation, Space Cadet. You're getting your third dunk ever. Because that is true. These guys are assholes. And we are finding that there's a correlation. Fiercely saying, at Carlo, I believe in the current roster, providing they work and improve in the offseason. I think that if we just get more organized, that'll really, really help things. Like, seriously, some of the stuff that they just didn't do last season, I was like, it just seems so obvious. They could do more pick and roll. It seems more obvious that they could utilize this player in this way better. It seems more obvious that why the fuck are we going so crazy running around like chickens with their head cut off with our defense when in some ways we have such premium defensive talent that we could beat players just one-on-one straight up. We don't need to go chasing around. Nick had this idea of like speeding up the game by being aggressive and trying to initiate in the passing lane or going for gambles. And then everybody has to catch up and catch it. It's like he activates their offense and forces them to do things that they don't necessarily want to do. Well, because offenses are hurried up already in the league at this point, it didn't bother them. It's like, okay, yeah, you're going to hurry us up on our offense? Well, we'll just find the corner guy and he'll hit the three. And you guys will go to one side, swing it, and we'll swing it way fast to the other side, and you guys won't be able to recover. And boom, it's an open three in the corner. They figured out our defensive system. And that's why it was not consistent all year. It worked the year before because some of the rules still benefited it. They changed the rules in the summer. They took that away. And then everybody had us scouted. And they knew exactly how to break our defense down with offensive schemes. So we need somebody new that ain't going to do something that's so known. And, that's part of the thing with baseball. The pitchers, they're good as rookies because you never see their stuff. And the second year they come back, they know their stuff and they know how to hit off of them better. It's the same kind of thing. You got to continually innovate and change so that people aren't catching up to you and understanding how to beat your team. And at some point, Nick just got lazy and he stopped trying to change things with our team and everybody caught up on how to beat us. And that's a big part of it. The talent level is fine. It's just that he was fucking lazy in pushing us in innovation to be ahead of the game. And that's a big, huge factor in why we weren't good this year. Mike saying, gee, technically 4 games we played a single post-game season game, but the price they paid will hurt them bad. It's a future first, too. So Mitchell probably won't even be there when the picks come up. Wild. Listen, those mortgages for the future of Gobert and Mitchell from last summer. How they feeling, Minnesota and Cleveland? This is exactly what I said was going to happen last summer. When they made these moves, I said, these are fucking fail moves. And I was right. I love coming around and seeing it all come to fruition, just like Hannibal Smith. I love it when a plan comes together. Yeah, I knew this shit was going to happen with Minnesota. Twin Towers fallacy. Yeah, this shit ain't going to work. Seriously, you see the trends in the NBA. Why the fuck would you double down with 2 centers, especially one as goofy as that Frenchman, Rudy Gobert? And then the second with the Cleveland, I was like, you guys have 2 little guards and you got these 2 big guys. And I'm telling you, Donovan Mitchell is not a winner. That's part of the reason why Danny Ainge shipped him out of Utah. It's because he knows his personality. He's more like Giannis than Jimmy Butler. Let's put it that way. All right, let's keep going. MSJ saying, as normal, Toronto is an outsider and we can't start to think otherwise and build our team from the outside looking in. Cavs, pretty team, not much more. They're going to characterize everybody. In some ways, that's part of the war is the war of perception. And that's part of the reason why we get slighted so much in the U.S. media in different places or discounted or said things like Ime Udoka says, because they want to continue to have this perception of keeping us down as being a lesser NBA team, where the reality is we're a very premium top-level NBA team that's just not performing at a high level right now. But we will be again. and we will demand the respect that we deserve as a team, as a franchise, because of the way we're run by Masai Ujiri. That'll all come back again very soon. Trust me. As soon as next year, I'm going to predict right now. Let's see. Fiercely saying also at Carlo, I believe a new coach perspective and style of play will make a huge difference. Go Raps. Yeah, there's all kinds of different things he could do. Like I said, differently with Scotty, with OG, with Pascal, with Fred. And I want to see somebody more creative and and different and with things. And like, I want these players to come in next year and be like, holy shit, this coach is telling us to do interesting things that I've kind of wanted to do all along. And it's fun because we're getting to try new stuff that Nick never had us doing. And we are actually finding success. That's what we need to happen. That's how that little snowball starts. He comes in, he starts orienting the team, gives them their system, tells them how he's going to be now. This is how it's going to be now because I'm the coach, Stackhouse. And then, like, you know, he starts implementing things and players are like, whoa, why didn't we do this before with Nick? I want that kind of stuff to start happening in training camp. I want that kind of inertia of building a snowball. Is saying like the excitement and the exuberance of like having a new coach and new system and new things. It brings everybody's spirit up because they're like enthusiastic about the promise or the possibilities that are going to come from possibly the new coach coming in with new ideas and a new system. That's what we want. That's very much what we want for the summer and going into training camp. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Troy Henry is saying Giannis got mad at the reporter last night because he asked if this season was a fail. Giannis said we were playing for finals, but Miami was playing to beat us. Well, you got ahead of yourself then, Giannis. You got to take care of the food on your plate first before you go and beat your meat later. As Doc Rivers would say, don't play with your meat. Giannis, you got to finish your plate before you get dessert, motherfucker. You got to eat your pot roast before you get that fucking creme brulee, man. So don't even thinking about finals already. That's pretty arrogant, bro. That's pretty damn arrogant. We were thinking about the finals, not thinking about beating them. Well, you got to fucking beat them to get to the finals, Giannis. I mean, hello. Do you know logic and like the progression of the playoffs? You got to win the first round to get the finals. Hilarious. Cowboys here. Good morning, Lex and Raptor Freaks. Where do you vote? Vote for that dunk is what he wants to know. Everyone have a great day. The sun is shining, everyone. I think we'll have our coach by the end of the weekend. Let's go Raptors. Whoa. I don't know if that's true, Bradley, but we'll see. We just want to have that coach before the draft lottery, or if not, before the draft for sure. So we'll see how it all develops. No rush. Let Masai do his job. Let him do the interviews, vetting. You know, once again, our franchise is very close knit and close to the tight to the vest. Like we don't show what we're doing. Now I'm not hearing anything about. I heard that Adrian's getting interviewed, but I haven't really heard a whole lot about our interview process or who has actually came in and interviewed or nothing. Not yet, because they don't tell nobody. They really do keep this shit quiet and keep it on the down low around MLSE. So if they're interviewing people, we don't know. They're not going to tell us. And they may be already interviewed a whole bunch of people. We just don't fucking know because they keep it all behind closed doors, this kind of stuff. And they're very good at this. So we'll see. I mean, they may be that they haven't interviewed a whole lot of people and maybe they're waiting around. Like maybe they are waiting to see if Budenholzer gets fired and that they may want to interview him next week. So we'll have to see. MSJ saying Scotty's going to have to be that dog. Could happen, and I've seen the force and passion. Lowry was a head case early on. The boyish nature of Scotty leaves him at some point. Stackhouse, why not? You know, this is an awesome comment, MSJ, and I think you're exactly right. Like, you know, we think about Lowry when he was young. He is a hothead. He had problems with the coach, and in some ways, they turned his attitude. Masai did in some ways, and Casey turned it into something very valuable and useful and a hot commodity in some ways. They kind of turned Lowry into like Butler by really making him see a perception in his life about how he should go with things and use his edge in a correct way that it can be very, very fruitful. And it became like that in 2019 when we won the championship. So I agree with this. In some ways, Scotty's in his early development. He's very young and immature as an NBA player. I'm not going to say he's immature as a person because he is in some ways, but that doesn't matter. In some ways, he is going to mature and grow more into his NBA body, grow more into his NBA mentality and head as far as what it takes to be a pro. And this is the thing about Scott. From all the Summers Twitch last year, he is super competitive. And he does have that in him. In fact, I would say if you're going to look at Michael Jordan or Vince Carter, I'm going to tell you he could be more like Michael Jordan than Vince Carter. And that is what he needs to think about. Do you want to be like Vince Carter, Scotty? Be just a guy who cruises through your NBA career, does really good, plays a long time, makes a lot of money, does all this stuff? Or do you want to be like fucking Jordan and win a lot? Because I think you want to be more like Jordan than Carter. You don't want to just have a nice NBA career. You want to win. And that's what I'm saying, Scotty. You're going to have to cultivate that as part of your character and what you want. And we see some of the tools where you could be like Kawhi and be that kind of guy that can make a winning play at any time. That's what Chris said yesterday in the Hustle Play. He said, Kawhi's the kind of guy that will make a winning play on either side of the court. He'll get the steal. He'll make the mid-range. He'll do whatever it takes to win. Well, Scotty, you could be as good as Kawhi in that kind of way, in the dominant ways that you score around the low post. You could be that kind of guy as Kawhi on the defensive end, getting a big block or a steal, just like you have this year. You had a huge block or two at the end of one of the games that we won this season. And it was a big defensive play that helped seal the win for us. So in some ways, Scotty is like a baby Kawhi in that kind of way, where he could become the kind of guy that can make winning plays on either end of the court that really take us home to wins. That's what you want to develop, Scott. That's what you want to develop in your mentality and the results on the court more and more. And you're just finding your legs. You're such a young doe, a little deer, finding your legs and getting steady on them. And well, when you're steady on your legs and you're a big, huge, like horns and strong deer, woo, you're going to be able to run over people and kill all kinds of people on the court. And I'm going to be so here for it when that happens. But it's really, Scott, it's what your desire. Do you want to be like Michael or you want to be like Vince? Be like Michael. Be like Mike. Just like the commercials used to say, be like Mike. I'm all about that. Yes. Raptor Truth Teller saying the problem was more roster construction, not the coach. Laugh out loud. Detroit is 17-65. Does that make Casey a bad coach? Spurs are 22-60. Does that make Popovich a bad coach? All right. I will go right into this with you, Raptors Truth Teller. If you think you're telling the truth on this, you're wrong. You are wrong. And I'll tell you exactly why this is the difference. All right. There's very, very purposeful tanks in both those cities. Kate Cunningham got hurt very, very early. And that signaled exactly the playbook for Detroit the whole season. We're folding and we want to get the worst record. You know, I was joking at the beginning of the season that maybe Popovich will take the challenge of this year with the Victor sweepstakes as the year he tries to not win a single game the whole entire year. At the very beginning of the season, I put that challenge to Popovich. I said, Coach, you're so good at winning. Could you go a whole season losing on purpose? You know, this is what they were doing. They were losing on purpose. It was all part of the plan. This was not the plan for the Raptors. And that's the big difference, True Teller, is the plan was to win and to develop. And we didn't do either one. We failed at both. And that's the management of the coach. You can say it's the roster, but that's bullshit. He's got very good players on this team. He has 5 starters that average 15 points per game. I don't give a shit if people think our bench was shitty. It's shitty because of Nick, and it's not because of Bobby Webster. These are NBA level players. These are young players. These are the players your GM gives you. And the coach needs to make the best of them, and he did not. So the failures are on Nick Nurse, and they're not on the front office, and you are wrong. And I will say that every single time on this. They were very much intentional tanks in those other 2 cities. And that, you know, Casey stepped down after it. So it's like they did lose their coach afterwards because he hated it. And he's old. He's like, I'm getting too old for this shit. Just like a fucking Danny Glover on Lethal Weapon. That's what Dwayne Casey said at the end of the season. He's like, I'm getting too old for this shit. Put me in the front office. And Popovich, we don't know how much longer he's going to be coaching anyway. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a different situation. There were expectations for Nick this season, and he did not meet them. And that's why Masai fired him. Plus, on the down low, if you can't tell this, True Teller, you really open your eyes. Nick Nurse sabotaged this season because he wanted it out because Clutch wanted him to get out so that he could get a bigger contract. And that this was manipulated by his representation to get to this outcome. That in some ways, Masai probably didn't even want to fire him. That was not his intention. He went from last summer comparing him to Messi and Kobe, and everybody dreams of getting him. Well, Clutch figured out a way that dream could happen, and it very much is from them. I'm going to blame them completely for what happened with Nick, and that it's their fault for telling Nick that. And then Nick was stupid enough to go along with their plan. And in some ways, he sabotaged this team by not playing Jeff Doughton Jr. enough, by not playing the bench enough, by fucking, like, I swear, from my own eyes, I can see, and I've coached basketball at different levels. I've saw him pulling punches just like a boxer. He was holding back. He was holding back this whole fucking season. And that is a big reason and part of why we were so mid, is because Nick half-assed this season. You don't want to blame Nick. That's fine. I blame Nick completely. And I am right. You're not, because I can fucking show all the evidence in the world that will prove that I'm right. You know, they fucking changed his roster every single summer, and he still couldn't fucking find good bench players. That's a failure on the coach and Nick Nurse. We're going to completely disagree a lot. I can tell. Your truth may be completely different than mine, and yours may be twinged with some pessimism. Well, pessimism don't live on this channel, motherfucker. This is an optimistic channel, so you better watch out and check it right now. I'm telling you, roster construction can't be blamed for this. There were good players on our bench that he didn't utilize. They could have been used in roster roles, but he's all about everything, all around versatile players that can do everything on the court. Well, if you have specialty players that aren't talented enough to do the all-around play that he's demanding, his system is faulty. That's what I'm saying. He should have figured out ways to get little niche role players out there like Joe Wieskamp, Jeff Doughton, Christian Koloko, Delano Banton. He could have utilized them in certain situations for their specific skills and gotten way more out of them. That is a failure of the coach right there. That's what I'm going to say right there. I don't give a shit who Bobby gives him. You got to take what he gives you and make the best of it. And he failed at that. So there you go. I'll dunk on you some more if you want. Keep coming with the bullshit. Elijah's saying, yeah, I'm happy for Heat. They are handling necessary business, and it is a good way for Udonis to go out. That's right. You know, in some ways, that's a story the NBA would want to write. The amazing story of Udonis Haslem and his career with the Heat. And it was funny, you got that tech last night, getting in Bobby Portis's face. I kind of love that so much. Like, Udonis doesn't have to play, and he's a factor because he's very much that tough guy off the bench that really does kind of say, no bullshit with my team. I'm going to fuck you up. And that was great to see him get in Bobby Portis's face and get that technical last night. And in some ways, you know, maybe they want to write a dream season for the Heat this season. If they can get as far as possible, that's a great storyline with a Udonis Haslem who's retiring as soon as they're done. They wanted to give him more games. They got past the first round against Milwaukee. You go, Heat. In some ways, I'm rooting for you. I don't know. In some ways, I don't know. Who am I rooting for? I guess I got to go with Lowry against the Knicks, although I kind of do really like the Knicks too. So I'm kind of rooting for both the Knicks and the Heat. I'd like to see like a 7-game bash it out kind of series between those two teams. In some ways, I kind of think the Heat are going to beat the Knicks because they do have that veteran experience and they may have more moxie than them ultimately in the end. And that coaching battle between Spoelstra and Thibodeau is going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic. Let's see. Cowboys saying my vote is for Stackhouse. Let's go. See, now more people are coming around on Stackhouse. This is part of the reason why I put this propaganda out about the Raptors, is to try and help shape knowledge and opinions in the Raptors nation. You know, whether it's like, you know, talking about why we failed this year or who we should get for the head coach. I'll go do research and come tell you guys stuff about it. And maybe if it sounds good, you'll agree with me. Fun guy saying, oh, hell no, I'm all in for the Lakers. It would mean so much to me to watch my era of best basketball player ever to win again at such an old age. It is revolutionary and never seen before. I'm not a LeBron guy. You know, I really am not. And I root against him. And in some ways, I want him to fail always. So I got to disagree with you on this. I'm definitely going for the Grizzlies. I definitely want Dylan Brooks to get redemption, even if he doesn't do it himself, even if it is Ja Morant and Desmond Bane doing all the 30-point scoring. I still want the Grizzlies to get past the Lakers. And in some ways, the Lakers are showing their true selves more recently in like the last game. They've kind of gotten up for the playoffs and the buzz and the energy, but in some ways, they're not a good team overall. They're kind of more thrown together, and they're still got the same problems the Lakers have had the last few years. So I can see you're a LeBron fan. That's fine, fun guy. You can root for him, but I'm not. I'm a Canadian fan of Dylan Brooks from Mississauga. And I will stand on his side, just like Chris did. It was funny how Chris talked about his friend Dylan Brooks on the Hustle Play podcast because he brought him up again because he's been very much being crazy. And, of course, they're best friends. So Mike Roach brings up Dylan Brooks. And he says, I've told you 3 times now. that Dylan Brooks is exactly what you see. That's how he's always been. I met him and he was already turned up and crazy like that, talking trash. And this is just the same person. It's not like he's doing it any differently. It's just that he's on a bigger stage with a bigger spotlight. And that's why everybody's seeing it. And Chris fully supports Dylan. It was like he wasn't dissing him or saying anything. He's being a real good friend. And he's saying, I like what Dylan's doing. That's just who he is. And I'm in Chris and Dylan's camp too. We may be looked at as like, you're crazy. He's a villain. He's an idiot. And what is he talking shit for? He can't back it up. But I love that. I love that so much. And if he ends up beating LeBron in the first round, this is going to be awesome because in some ways, I want to see him talk more shit. And I'd love to see him possibly have to play the Warriors later on down in the playoffs because that is going to be such a battle. Grizzlies and Warriors, if we get that matchup somehow, some way in these playoffs, that is ratings bonanza. Seriously, that with all the bullshit that's been going on between those two teams in the last year or so, that is a ratings bonanza. And in some ways, they may want that. Although Lakers and Warriors is very attractive also. So it is going to be very interesting to see how this all goes. David's saying at Raptors True Teller, they also had similar records last year and the year before that and the year before that. Are you able to see the difference now or should I keep going? That's the thing. Spurs have been bad for a few years now. And it's like Popovich is an institution. It's a very different kind of situation. And once again, Popovich did not let his representation get in his head and feed his ego bullshit to fuck him up in how he coached his team this year. That's a big difference also. People are conveniently leaving out a whole bunch of shit. Like, why the fuck did Nick leave of absence last December? Because he got in a fight with somebody on the team. Maybe it was Masai. Maybe it was one of the assistant coaches. Maybe it was one of the players. And he had to leave for a couple of days. Was it because of something that happened in his family? We don't know why he left for a while. But that was right around where everything fucking fell apart. Masai pinpoints the loss to New Orleans and the loss to Brooklyn and around November that were blowout losses as he saw that our spirit had deflated and we weren't the same Raptors for the rest of the season after that. We were okay for the first month up until then. And even after Pascal got hurt in Dallas, we were still kind of doing okay until those really bad blowouts against New Orleans and Brooklyn. And that's where Masai sees it as going wrong. Then we also see in December, Nick Nurse taking leave of absence. In January, we see Earl Watson not asked to come to the trip because of some conflict with him and Nick Nurse. Then we see Nick Nurse doing weird shit with people's time on the court near the end of the season with Jeff Dowtin Jr. and his eligibility with a 905 and all that shit. And then Thad Young with his incentives for his contract. And then Masai says, I didn't tell him not to play Thad. He did that on his own. I think that Thad had a problem with Nick and Nick was punishing him. So there's all this extra underlying shit that was happening this season on the down low, and it all centered around Nick Nurse. I'm telling you right now, it didn't have to do with players. It didn't have to do with the management. It was the coach. The coach was totally toxic this season, whether it was because of his representation, whether it was because of interpersonal conflicts on the team with people like Earl Watson and Thad Young. There were issues with Nick Nurse this whole entire season. And you could tell from his body language how stressed he was, how red in the face, how like he didn't seem like his normal calm kind of self. He seemed very desperate. He seemed very kind of disheveled. He didn't seem like his normal self. And he had dark energy around him. He very much had negativity around him, which is weird because at the beginning of the season, he said a whole bunch of stuff about how his coaching staff and who's around the team has to have good energy. And if they don't have good energy, he's going to fire them and get rid of them. And I was wondering what he meant by that. Like, is there somebody on the coaching staff that he doesn't like their energy and he's already kind of warning them? And that maybe there was some sort of conflict like that? Well, his energy turned dark by the end of the season, and he sabotaged our season right at the end with the Philly press conference before the game. That is solely the epitome of why we lost in the postseason. Was Nick Nurse signaled that he'd waved a white flag and he didn't give a shit about the season anymore because he was already thinking about the beach and thinking about his future and saying, well, 10 years is a long time. And Chris said it yesterday in the podcast. He said that was a sign that he's checked out. And well, the rest of them checked out in leadership after him. He leaded them right to checking out because he checked out before that game. And I mean, that's it right there. That's exactly it. Logical saying the Lakers were facing the worst offensive team in the league in the Grizzlies. Brooks, hang on, it jumped. Hang on, where'd it go? Okay. Brooks is a huge part of the non-effectiveness of that hyped up offense. Ja, rim rummer, and Bane hits threes at times is main. Um, I don't think that the Grizzlies have a bad offense. I mean, they may do it unconventionally and they may do it a hard way, but they score a lot and they score like from all kinds of different people. And they have like hidden scorers on their team also. Like that Tillman guy gets points kind of in hidden ways. And then they have like bench role players that all of a sudden rise up and they fill it up too and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never thought of Memphis as being like one of the worst offensive teams because they put up huge numbers and they're in the Western Conference and they get into scoring battles with the Warriors and the Kings and they win. So I don't totally agree with that, Mike. Quicku's here again. Quick Ghana, good to see you again. Who would you add in a free agency? I mean, it's so open ended that question. And in some ways, I'm not like, because I don't know who exactly is going to be a free agent this summer completely. It's hard for me to really answer this completely. I will say this that if we're going to make a big move like a Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan move, it will happen this summer. That this is kind of the symbol and the pattern that Masai's shown: fire the coach and get a big, huge player, and then boom, win a championship. Well, let's try and do that again. Let's get a new coach, win the championship with a new, huge, big time player that comes here. What if it's like Luka Doncic? What if it's Dame Lillard? What if it's just like somebody crazy like that we end up getting this summer somehow, some way? And we may lose somebody in return, just like we lost DeMar, but it may be like, holy shit, we've got Damian Lillard on the Raptors all of a sudden. That's what I'm saying. This kind of stuff is possible. And I wouldn't put it past Masai for not being able to pull this kind of shit off because we've seen the president. He did it with Kawhi. Why can't he fucking do it again this summer? He's got the assets for it. All it would take is flipping somebody like OG or Pascal to the other way, and you could get somebody like Dame Lillard on our team all of a sudden. Seriously, the possibilities are endless. And that's why I think we're closer than people think is we could make a Kawhi move this summer, and then all of a sudden people are going to be saying, "Oh, the Raptors are a championship contender," because look at them on paper. That's what I'm saying. This is going to happen. I really will predict this right now. Shir Khan saying, "Good morning, Raptor Freak family. Busy at work, but just wanted to say hi. That Dylan to Toronto for OG at the deadline was something, though. Ime putting down the Raptors for no good reason. He's probably going to flame out in Houston. Yeah, I could predict this. That's a really tough job. That's such a tough job to get out of the mud, and it's very likely he's going to be unsuccessful, and he's not going to look as shiny and good as a coach anymore once he's done with Houston. Trust me. Go ask Steven Silas about how that job is. He can tell you exactly how that job is. That's a silly deal. Nobody should ever trade Dylan Brooks straight up for OG. That's crazy. That is not worth it. I would never do that. Now, they're saying that the Memphis Grizzlies are not going to be happy with him, and they're going to try and get rid of him this summer. Some people are already saying that they've been trying to get rid of Dylan Brooks before, and they couldn't. I'd love to have him on Toronto. His synergy with Chris would be fun. It would be like Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart kind of synergy. And in some ways, we love the Canadian in him, and he'd have a home crowd. And in some ways, I don't think that the home crowd, home team thing that I worry about with some guys coming back to Toronto would matter with him just because of his personality. And in some ways, he gives us a lot of something we want, which is an edge, an attitude, maybe a distraction and a problem at times. But in some ways, we do want that kind of guy on our team, a villain. And I don't know. I'm on the fence on it. Like, if he could play better offensively consistently, I really, really like him. But in some ways, I really do feel like his edge is the best thing about him. Let's see. Fiercely saying, via the NBA app, I voted for Scotty's dunk and also an SGA handle. Yeah, because they do the dribble one too. They got a dunk one and a dribble one. Very cool. So it's on the NBA app if you want to vote for Scotty for dunk of the year. G saying, I'm back, baby. Bradley via the NBA app or, the NBA IG bio under fan favorites. Okay, so you can go to their Instagram for NBA and find it in their bio there or on the NBA app. Shirkan saying, last night all the games were straight up fire. In a lot of ways, okay with Raps not taking that 8th spot because we didn't have enough to take out the Bucks. We need a guy like Ime and had Kyle before, though. In some ways, I don't agree with you, Shir Khan. I think we could have taken them out just like Miami did, but we'd have to have where Nick didn't fuck up everything at the end of the season. We'd have to be focused and playing like the Raptors were supposed to and come in there with a big, good, pure effort. We always played well against Milwaukee in recent years. We beat them in the playoffs. That's part of what Kyle was doing. It's like some people are saying it wasn't Norman that was the buck killer. It was Kyle that was the buck killer all along. And now he's killed the Bucks once again. I have faith in us against Milwaukee in a playoff series for the whole season, even. Because when we did play them, we did okay against them. I mean, sure, it wouldn't be exactly easy, but I think we could have replicated what the Miami Heat did in certain ways. I mean, we have that wall for Giannis. In some ways, we negate him. And then we are pretty good at kind of keeping up with the rest of their guys and playing them very competitively. So I don't know. I wouldn't just say that we wouldn't have been able to do what Miami did, because who knows? We could have. If we'd gotten through the plan and gotten up against Milwaukee soft like this, we may have been just as successful as Miami Heat. You can't say that for sure. Wayne's saying our next coach, I'm sure, will be what our team needs, because the decision makers are Bobby and Masai. Funny that teams going forward we have winning records against. Every game counts in the end. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Every single game counts. At the Atlanta game, we learned a big lesson this year about that Atlanta game with Adrian Griffin's son, AJ Griffin. That game really was pivotal and important for a whole entire season this year. It may have been the most important regular season game this whole entire year, and we didn't even realize it at that time. And that's why we need to take this shit seriously. Next season, we're going to have in-game season tournament. And some of the games are going to be more important. Did you guys know this? For those in-game season tournament games, they're going to have a different court and different jerseys, apparently. Like, they're going to have a way of signifying that this is part of the tournament, in-season tournament games, where they're going to have a different court that people play on and different jerseys. That's what they're saying initially. I don't know if they'll actually go through with it, but that'll make things a little bit more like all 82 games. Some of them do matter more because there's a cash prize with an in-season game, is in-season tournament. So I'm excited about some of the changes. And if there's anything the young Raptors need to learn this year, is to very much value every single fucking game, every single possession, every single minute, every single quarter of every single game all year long. That is so important. It's so important. Every game counts. And I'm exactly with you. I trust in Bobby Masai. They're going to make the best coaching decision for us. We're not trying to hire a coach to fire them next summer. We're hiring a coach so that they're going to stick around and be institutional for a while. We've been lucky. We've only had 2 coaches over the last 15 years. And that is really, really good. We don't want to be a team that has a coaching carousel. And that's the risky thing about where we're at right now with no coach right now, is that we got to fill the coaching vacancy and not be like one of these teams that has to get different coach for like 3 tries until we get the right one. We need to get the right one right now and go forward with them and not have to fire our coach in a couple years from now because they didn't work out. Let's see. Seymour saying Pistons fans only look forward to opening night to see young, exciting talent by All-Star break. They're rooting for another team. They have the least support in the whole entire league. This is actually statistically true. The Pistons have the least amount of fans on social media. They have the least amount of support in their own arena. It's evidenced by us coming to their arena and taking it over when we play them in Detroit. So their fan base is really in a bad place as far as they're not enthusiastic. There's a lot of sadness, but maybe things will be different if they win the draft lottery. At least getting Scoot Henderson at second or something like that, maybe it revigorates them or something like that. I don't know. Cade coming back next season, being healthy, and a high draft pick. The Pistons are going to be better next year for sure. Mike saying, W Stream, things are fine. We have assets and great decision makers in charge. I'll be back around Monday probably. I got to watch everything still. I haven't seen any Raptor stuff for the last 2 weeks. Well, Mike, you can always get caught up here. We're on the pulse of it every single day, talking about every single thing that's happening with Chris Boucher's hustle play yesterday, Ime Udoka's out-of-pocket statements, and then, of course, just talking more about Jerry Stackhouse and the fit here in Toronto and why it makes sense. He marks a lot of the boxes as far as what I think is attractive in a coach. He's a good development coach. He can connect with young players. He has the clout with the referees. He has a connection to our team already. He's not closely connected to Nick Nurse. There's a lot of different reasons why Jerry Stackhouse is very attractive and smart to be possibly our number 1 option for our coach going forward. We'll have to see. Let's see. Seymour saying Nick Nurse quit on us like Kawhi did the Clippers. Yeah. In some ways, that's got to be so frustrating. Clippers fans are going to be like, holy shit, we have such a good team. We have so many good players, future Hall of Famers on their team this year. They John Wall, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, all on the same team this year at different times. And what the fuck are they? What the fuck are they? They're like a hospital room. All right, Truth Teller saying, Lex, not trying to be negative, but if what your roster is put together, well, the coaching becomes easier. It would be hard for any coach to coach. Nurse had to change the lineup every game. Laugh out loud. All right, I'm gonna go along with what you're saying to a degree, and I'll agree with you to a degree. I mean, it's not simple. We can't all be Phil Jackson and just be set up with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, or Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Rick Fox kind of stuff. These guys, you get into a cushy job. In some ways, Nick was given a cushy job. It was all set up to succeed. In some ways, a lot of people on this channel say that Nick didn't even coach our championship year. They say that Kyle coached it. That's what some people are trying to say here. It's true. You drive a nice car because you get in the car and it's already fit up for you to be like successful. It's easier. But that's what makes a really good coach a really good coach. In some ways, Mike Brown getting the coach of the year in Sacramento is a testament to him increasing something from what guys that coached that team last year couldn't do. So there's a difference. There's a difference. There's enough good players on this team, and we've seen this team be good enough to do certain things. And Nick just didn't squeeze it out of them this year. He didn't motivate them. I'm telling you, he was very half-assed this year. I don't know if they keep the stat of how often he squats on the court side when he's coaching, and his squat factor this season was a very low percentage. There weren't very often that we saw Nick up off his feet off the bench, trolling up and down the sidelines and actually getting more engaged. There were a lot of times where he was just sitting there watching. And in fact, in the play-in game in the third quarter, when Billy Donovan had the Bulls coming back at us and coming at us and coming to steal the game, Nick reacted too late. He was sitting on the bench like this for like most of the third quarter in that play-in game. And I'm like, Nick, get up off your fucking feet and start coaching. They're coming back. This is me at home yelling at him, seeing that the tide was turning way before he did. So, yeah, he failed. He was lackadaisical. He was lethargic, and he was too late, and he was relaxing too much. I think the team in general, this is part of why we were so unsuccessful, is they got too comfortable. They got too, things are too nice. When Chris is saying we were underdog spirit before and we had a chip on our shoulder, and we come up and knock down the bigger guy than us, that was part of our spirit. It was part of our character in recent years. Well, that's gone. We're too cushy. We're like, we got everything we want. We're comfortable. We're happy. We like our coach. That's part of the problem. And that's what Masai was saying. The friction on this team was not right. You need good friction. When you don't have any friction, everybody's just kind of like casual and kind of like, yeah, we play in the NBA. Everything's fine. That's not good either. You need a fire lit under their asses. You need motivation. You can't be lackadaisical in that kind of way. And that's a big part of why we failed this season, is that we were taking things for granted and not fighting enough for what we wanted because we wanted it. We were kind of like, we're pros. We're in the league. Coach Nick Nurse lets us do whatever we want. We'll go around and we're losing and it doesn't feel good. So I don't know. We can see different on this. I know I'm going to protect the front office right now because in some ways I'm doing damage control, Raptors Truth Teller. Is like, I don't want us to burn down too much of our team. So in some ways, what I do is I'm propaganda and I fight against like coming after Fred, coming after Pascal, coming after Scotty, coming after Masai. And that's what I'm doing right now. We've obviously scapegoated Nick Nurse for this season. So let's just dump it all on him. Just like the NBA refs got all dumped on Tim Donaghy. He was the patsy. You think he's the only ref that bet on the NBA? No, he's not. They dumped it all on him and made him a patsy. Well, Nick Nurse is our patsy for this season, and we'll just blame him. And let's stop the collateral damage, because some people in Raptors Nation are coming for other heads, and I don't agree with that. I think less change is better for our situation. And this culture change of changing the coach will be a huge change for next year. And it may be just exactly what we need and nothing else. And that's why, people are saying, no, do Fred, get rid of Fred next. I'm like, fuck that shit. We need to have some linkages to our championship team. We don't have our coach anymore. And basically we have two players that played in the championship year and then two guys that were on the bench during that. And that's it. That's it. But all respect, Truth Teller, all respect. I love the disagreement, and I love like talking it out with people and kind of fleshing out perspectives on both sides. I get what you're saying. In some ways, down the road, if we see that it's continuing to happen and it doesn't have to do with the coaches, then sure, I'll come after the front office at that point. But also we have to realize that the Raptors as a team are in some ways, their hands are tied when they're a front office. There's certain things we can't do as easily as the Celtics or the Lakers can. And in some ways, we have to play by our own rules with how we do our front office. And this is very much why Masai really keys on development, that we have to develop our talent here within house, because in some ways we're not going to get the free agents that the Celtics or the Knicks or the Lakers are going to get. So we have to play by our own rules. And that's why in some ways we don't value the draft in certain ways, and we don't value free agency in certain ways, because we have to play by our own rules because we're Toronto. And this is kind of how the NBA has treated us and how our perception and what we can do. Let's see. MSJ saying Scotty has that dog in him over Vince. And what Chris Boucher is saying, Nick Nurse was a huge issue with the bench. Doughton is the most obvious example. We all saw it, could not understand it. And it was Nick. I think that the biggest fail, and this is the statistical biggest fail, and I said this in the last week, is Jeff Doughton having 50 games eligible to play for the Raptors. And out of those 50 games where he was in a uniform, he only played half of them. Jeff Doughton only played 25 games this whole entire season. That's a fuck up. There were a lot of games in the middle where we were like, play Jeff Doughton. And a lot of people were saying it. It was like, free Jeff Doughton, play Jeff Doughton. There was a lot of that going on in Raptors Nation. And that was when he should have been playing him. That he was playing very capable. He could have came in and taken minutes from Fred, got his minutes down a bit, and he could have been developed more into the real backup point guard that we needed. And people were crying out all season. I was like, well, we have a backup point guard. His name's Jeffrey. It's just that Nick is not playing him. And there were all kinds of chances he could have played him, and he failed at it. And the fact that he wasted 25 suited up games of just DMPing him on the bench, that's a fucking fail. I'm sorry. That's a fail all around. You could have at least got him in for 5 minutes on a lot of those games. And that's a big, huge fail to me, and a huge one that I blame Nick for. You didn't fucking play Jeff when you could have. And that's a development story that did not go as well as it should. Let's see. Carlos saying, I have to agree with that. Nick Nurse had no adjustments and plays during crunch time. Tired starters, no crunch time plays. A lot of our games were winnable games. That was part of the fallacy and stupidity of overplaying our starters. Is what the fuck? You can play them all 3 quarters ahead. Don't expect them to have any juice at the end of the game to close the game out and win it. That's why you have a bench. You have to rest your starters so they can be fresh for the final push and closing the game out and making winning plays. There was too often our guys looked absolutely dog tired. Fred, Pascal didn't have anything in the tank at the end of the game to take us home. And that's part of the blame on Nick. That look, Siakam looked bad in the clutch situations, partly because he was overtired from playing so much during the whole fucking game because Nick overplayed him. Now, when there's that, is that on purpose? Because he knew that they would lose if he overplayed the starters? It could very well be that that was a strategy that he had all season. Because once again, I think Nick's motives were to leave. And that in some ways he wanted to leave this whole season, and he sabotaged the season so that the opening and the ability for him to leave would be there. Because if you look at it how he was at the beginning of the season, he was a foundational institution on our team. Like, we wouldn't have said, oh, Nick Nurse is not going to be our coach at the end of the season. Well, he had to fuck that up. And he did it in the most insidious way on the inside, in an inside job. And the really big things are overplaying the starters. Exactly. That will fail at the end of the game every single time because these guys have no juice. I mean, Pascal couldn't fucking make 2 out of 3 free throws at the end of the Chicago game. Partly that is concentration and just not fucking being being very tired. So, oh my gosh, Carlo, such a good comment, and you're exactly right. A lot of our games were winnable, but they were mismanaged with the minutes by overplaying the starters, so they weren't ready to play at the end of the game. If you're going to overplay the starters, then play somebody else that's fresh at the end of the game. You'd be better off doing that, Nick. Putting in a fresh person you didn't even play than playing an overtired Fred who's just going to chuck shitty shots, or a Pascal that's going to try and beat 3 defenders in an isolation play in the last 30 seconds of the game. That's so fucking bad basketball. Lazy playmaking also. David's saying, Raptors truth teller, do you actually watch the Raptors game? All right, let's not be too nice. Let's be nice to this guy. He's new, and he's new in the channel, and he's got to get our vibe first. So, David, I know you're one of our pit bulls that'll go after people in here, and there's no reason to do this. Let's let the guy have his opinions. And honestly, I like the variance in our opinions because in some ways we do need to have balance on all things here. And he's pointing a figure at Bobby Webster and Masai Ujiri, and we want to look at this and suss this out. If there's some, there is some real blame for sure that they should get. And I don't think the truth teller is exactly wrong, that in some ways we could have built this roster better. But in some ways, we got to do what we've got with what we've got. And I know that they're earnestly trying to improve this team, by getting Jakob, trying to get shooters like Will Barton. So it's not like they're not trying, but we got to see if they're being successful. Monique is saying, great job analyzing most of the important coaches, informational stream all around. Keep at it, Lex. Go Raptors, Raptors for life. Yes, Monique, Lawrence. Yes, we will be on this journey with the Raptors no matter what, because we're real ones. We're in the trenches. We've been there since 95. Would we change anything at this point? No, we wouldn't. Monique Lawrence is going to be a Raptors super fan for life. That's right. We're NWO for life, just like the NWO. You don't get out of the NWO, Hulk Hogan. No, you don't. You're NWO for life, bro. Raptors freaks for life. Infamous is saying, morning freaks. Patrick Mutombo is my pick. There's things about Patrick that are so attractive. Like, as far as he is stern, he's a taskmaster. When he was coaching 905, he really got a lot out of them. And the contrast between going from him to Eric Curry has been very stark. In some ways, Eric Curry seemed disorganized and just like not capable. Whereas Mutombo, holy crap, that guy is running that ship tight and very like demanding. And it's like, I want my players to do this. Like, I'd hear him in press conferences. I'm like, this motherfucker is serious. Like, he could be a drill sergeant in the Army. And I like that aspect about him. But once again, his Achilles heel is that he's a nobody. And he'll come in and he'll coach the Raptors. He'll get treated like Jay Triano when he was coaching the Raptors. No respect at all. The Raptors don't get a basic level of respect in some ways. And the coach needs to get some of that respect for us. And Mutombo won't get that. In some ways, he almost has to go be a head coach somewhere else and get more time in front of the refs and around the NBA to gain more clout, because he didn't play in the NBA. So a lot of people don't know who he is. And if he came and coached us next year, he'd be treated like a nobody. And I don't want that. If we want to be competitive right away, we need somebody who's known around this league. And that is a factor in this coaching search. He's great for a lot of reasons: the development, the sternness, the accountability, the familiarity with our team, the fact that he's a Masai guy and he's very much a part of our family still. But that clout factor is huge, 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 huge. And he doesn't have it. Mike's saying, I got to watch everything. I haven't watched any rap stuff for 2 weeks. My bad, Lex. You needed a break from my writing. Well, David thought you were gone because I kicked you out because of your bad grammar. I'm like, no, he's just on break. Everybody needs a break. Tom Duke hasn't been as active in this channel also. I get it. This was a tough year. We had a very disappointing ending. In some ways, everybody needs time away, and they don't want to think about the Raptors because it's a humiliation. It's a failure. I get it. Seymour saying Nick Nurse stuck to his guns even when the clip was empty. He is to blame. Yeah, he didn't change. This is the same reason why we fired Casey. Casey didn't change his attitude with how to handle the playoffs with adjustments, and it was his downfall. It was like, we can't get any further in the playoffs with Casey because he just doesn't adjust well enough in the series and with what's happening on the court. Well, in some ways, Nick didn't adjust fast enough with his rotations and the way he developed this team. And he didn't listen to Masai when Masai said, I want you to develop the young players. Well, Nick wanted to win. He said, I come to the job every day with the intention to make the Raptors win as best possible chances, no matter what. In his head, it's playing the starters 95% of the time. And that's fucked up. And that's what killed him as a coach for our team, other than the clutch factor too. But yeah, I'm with you, Seymour. I'm with you on that one. Let's see. Hang on. It jumped ahead. I'll get back to where I am in here. David's saying, nah, Logical, I've been asking about you for days. We love you here. There you go. David loves you, Mike. We're all good. Joey's here. Good to see Joey Grant. If the Raptors are mid again next year, will you have the balls to come on here and criticize the players and the front office, or are you going to make excuses and blame the coach again? Laugh out loud. Well, listen, Joey. All right, I saw your comments in afterwards. And listen, I understand why you're critical of me. Now, one thing I want to say real quick is, listen, if you want a channel that's pessimistic, that puts down the Raptors, that's going to say, oh, we're a horrible team over and over again, you can find all kinds of other channels for that. That's not what this channel is. This channel is for positive fans that believe in them and getting them forward. Now, I'm not forecasting midness for them next season. I believe in the best possibilities and the best outcomes for them, and I project towards them. And that's why I'm not going to get into this game with you as far as that. I'm projecting that we're going to get a very good head coach. We're going to have a big, huge free agency move this summer, and we're going to come back and be a very much a force in the Eastern Conference in the NBA once again. So, all right. Now, what do you want me to say? All right, I'll be fair. If next season, I'm not going to do this at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to do it at the middle of the season. I'm going to do it in this time next year. Now, if we have the same kind of outcome next season at the end of the season, then maybe, yeah, we'll be looking to see who we got to point fingers at. This year, it's the coach. This year, and that's completely fine. Messiah signified that he is the one to blame. That's why he's fired. This year is the coach. Well, what the fuck do you want, Joey? Do you want us to fire Masai right now too? Do you think that's a good idea, Joey? Let's go fucking fire Masai, Joey Grant. Do you like that idea? Oh, we need to fire Masai too. Who the fuck are you then? You're not for the Raptors if you want to fire Masai. I'm gonna tell you that right now because that's not good. That's not building. That's destroying. And this is the thing. Masai made it very clear in his end of season thing. He's about like making changes and continuing to build. He doesn't want to destroy. Like a lot of Raptors fans are saying, tear it all down, get rid of it. It's mid. He doesn't believe you guys. And he's right because he knows what he's fucking doing because he's in the job and you're not. And he understands that we have a good talent level and that you don't destroy it completely. You got to fucking tinker with it. You plug in and play. You put different parts in and you try and error. Now, all right, let's see. If a coach comes in next year and they do really, really well, but there's some other problem with the team that causes us to not do well, sure, I'll look at what the problem is and we'll talk about it, whether it's a player or whether it's a boneheaded front office move. I'm not blind to see things. It's just that don't get with the fucking program, Joey, that we're fucking blaming it on Nick this year. And if you have a problem with that, so be it. Have a problem with that. But this is how the best, healthiest, positive way for Raptors Nation to move forward. Now, if you don't like that, are you in Raptors Nation? Is that what the fuck is it then? You want me to blame Pascal? Okay, I'll blame Pascal for not being more clutch, for not making more late game situation shots. I'll blame Fred for not being a better leader and not shooting well in the first half of the season. You want me to blame Scotty? Okay, I'll blame Scotty for being 21 and not being old enough and smart enough to play better in this league. You want me to blame Bobby Webster? All right, I'll blame Bobby Webster because he didn't fucking get enough good bench players for them this year. All right, sure, I'll blame them. What does it fucking matter if I blame them? See, that's what I'm saying. Like what you're saying is futile and stupid and it is not necessary at this point. We have our scapegoat. We fucking scapegoat the shit out of him. And if you want to get behind scapegoating other people and coming after other people, you go ahead. But I'm not with you on that. Because I'm with Masai. We're going forward and we want to build and create, and we don't want to continue to tear down. Because we're smarter in some ways than you are. Because we understand you don't rip everything down and get rid of it. If you have a good structure and foundation in a lot of ways, and I don't believe this is a mid team. You know, some people, even if Ime Udoka thinks it's mid, fuck him. He doesn't fucking know what he's talking about. We don't know how good Scotty Barnes and Precious Achiuwa are going to get in the next 2 years. So there's a lot here, Joey. There's a lot here. If you want me to criticize other people, I can. I just did. But the blame squarely and mostly goes on Nick Nurse. There you go. Raptors Truth Teller saying, but by then it was already too late. Wieskamp came when we were below 500. The damage had already been done. Masai took responsibility for this too. 6'9" vision played a role as well. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there was a culmination of a lot of different things that just didn't work out anymore. The 6'9" vision was very much shown to be faulty. Just as like a general all-around thing, like if we thought we were going to be a positionless team 100% of the time, that is not going to work. You know, and Chris's analogy about tires was very interesting. He didn't say it very clearly, but I get what he's saying. In some ways, he's talking about how our team is so many players that are all-around players. And I've talked about this, the ambiguity of having players like Scotty, OG, Pascal, that are all 6'9" and kind of do everything. There's no real role definition. And that's been one of the biggest problems with the Raptors is these guys don't have specific roles. They're every man that does everything. And in some ways, like Chris was saying, if you have the all year round tires, they're going to slip in the winter a little bit. And in the summer, they're not exactly right either, but they can play all around. I think this is what he was trying to say that people may not totally understand. Because he wasn't saying it very clear. We have all around all year tires, and they may not be totally good in certain situations in the winter. They may slip a little. And That's a big part of the problem. The strength of the ambiguity and the versatility of Division 6-9 is also a weakness at the same time. Because in some ways, you want your shit planned out and clearly figured out strategy wise. And when it's so ambiguous that everybody can do everything at any time, it's like kind of like, okay, well, who's going to go do it? Go do it. It's almost like the coach needs to say, this is what you do, and this is your job, OG. This is what you do, Pascal, and this is your job, Pascal. This is what you do, Scotty, and this is your job, Scotty. And Nick wasn't doing that. He was just basically go out and do everything, guys, all at once, all at the same time. And can you see where that's kind of muddled and not clear and confused, and why you get the result of what happened this season from that kind of structure on your team? In some ways, we just want somebody, we're crying out for somebody to come in and give them roles. They just need fucking roles and jobs that they need to do. I'm with you on this. It was too late in the season with some of the moves. And really, the timing this whole season, True Teller, was really tough. Like, it really gave us one problem after another. Was Siakam being out, whether it's Precious being out, whether it's like different problems with like the losses when they were timed. Like the Orlando losses were really bad at that time. They broke our spirit when things were kind of building. Obviously, we were starting to build a late season build, and then we lost the game to Scott Foster in Denver. That absolutely killed some momentum we were starting to build again too. So it was kind of like Chris said, we'd win 3 games and then we'd lose 5. And it was like you forget all about the 3 games that you won because of the 5-game losing streak. And that's why this season was so hard on them, because it really felt like a losing season, even if they were winning at times too. So, oh man, there's so much about this season that went wrong in different ways. It kind of was a perfect storm of all kinds of just bullshit culminating. Whether it's the other teams figuring out our defensive scheme better, the rules changing by the NBA, the injuries, the internal problems with Nick Nurse, the late decisions with changing our roster late to adjust, like having to play with Pirtle and Wieskamp on Barton all of a sudden. That's all a part of it that made it so complicated and difficult and tough. I agree with you that the moves were late, but they were when they could happen. We couldn't get Pirtle until that exact moment. Everybody was saying, why didn't we get Pirtle sooner? We've needed the center for so long. Well, San Antonio wasn't ready to deal him until right then. And that we had to wait for Popovich and the Spurs to be ready to cut him loose. And that it finally happened, and we did land him. And that is really important. And some people don't like the Pirtle move, but they're going to like it more and more, trust me, in the years to come. They really will. MSJ saying Nick Nurse seemed disheveled. And I do think now he and Pensera are the dark triad. Late night conversations like Vader and Palpatine. I hope those guys aren't in cahoots. I doubt that they're talking to each other. I think Nick had good intentions. It's just that he was used like a puppet. I really do feel like Rich Paul was puppeting him this year, and he kind of made him do things he didn't want to do. And in some ways at the end of the season, and right now, he may be sitting in his house saying, what the fuck did I do? Why did I listen to them? Because like in some ways, he was set up to continue with us. He was supposed to be our coach next year. All the players thought he was going to be, but he really fucked it all up. And I'm sure in some ways he said he didn't regret what he said in Philadelphia. He probably does. He's lying. And Masai's right. It was a mistake. It was a mistake purely not for his personal reasons for why he doesn't think it's a mistake. It's a mistake because it totally destroyed the rest of our season. It totally destroyed the rest of our season. David's saying, Joey Grant, that all depends. Joey, will you be coaching the team? Okay, Joey. And they're calling him a clown. See, I don't even have to go after them. You guys will go after them at some point. Infamous is saying this playoffs has shown so far that the road to the chip is wide open. Yeah, we don't know who's going to be. It's like Mike Roach said to Chris Boucher on the Hustle Play. He said, who do you think is going to win the championship? It's wide open. Mike's starting to say that. And Chris is like, I think Milwaukee's going to win. No, they're not, Chris. They're definitely not going to win now. Monique's saying some fans need to look at when Pascal slipped in Dallas. Shaking my head, right, Lex? That really did turn the season for the first bad turn. We were holding it together with a very difficult schedule right from the start. That Miami, Philadelphia stuff right at the beginning. The first game against Cleveland, we won. We took a series with Miami right away on a weird back-to-back where we had to go from Brooklyn to Miami and lost the game against Miami. That was a schedule loss. But we were holding our own against top teams right away, playoff teams in the first week of the schedule. And we did really good. We were weathering it already. But then that Dallas split, woo, that really made things go down after that. And it got really hard then. Let me cooks here. Let's see what Philly fans saying this morning. Hey, Raptor Freak, hope you and Freaks are doing good. What did you think about the stories surrounding Phil Jackson's political comments on the league? People are saying he discriminated. Also, rest in peace, Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer died? Oh my gosh. What? I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to look at this afterwards. I love Jerry Springer. He's weird and like his show was trash, but there's some important things about Jerry Springer. Man, dropping knowledge on me just now. I'm kind of sad about this. I'm a little shook that Jerry Springer died. All right, we'll talk about Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like seriously, Jalen Rose had a really good rebuttal to him on his Instagram and what he said. He said, when people say what they say, believe who they are. And in some ways, I'm starting to realize that Phil Jackson is some sort of fucked up racist. Like, really, why do you have a problem with the messaging during the bubble, Phil Jackson? He's come out and he said he stopped watching the NBA during the bubble because of all the messaging on the court and on the uniforms about Black Lives Matter. What the fuck? This is so weird. Like, I did not know this about Phil Jackson, and now it's starting to make sense. There were some stories from before with Scottie Pippen and saying something about Phil Jackson. There were little rumbles and murmurs about him and who he was and his beliefs and maybe being a little racist. Well, now we're finding out more about this. And the crazy thing is he's one of the most winningest coaches in the history of the NBA. And like Jalen Rose said, he won a lot of games on the backs of a lot of really great Black athletes in the NBA. So I'm very disappointed in Phil Jackson. I used to have his book, Sacred Hoops, and I read it, and it was a very important book to me when I was young, as far as like thinking about coaching philosophies and stuff. But now everything about Phil Jackson, I'm kind of like, I want to fucking paint him as somebody who just got success from people like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And that, yeah, this is really disappointing. Fuck Phil Jackson. And you know what? You don't serve yourself by fucking being outspoken this way. Were you trying to go for the MAGA crowd or something like that, Phil? Because that's who you're talking to when you start talking about anti-Black Lives Matter kind of shit. You're starting to talk to Trump people. If you want to go get those people on your side, you go ahead. But you're turning back your back on the legacy of the NBA and the people in the NBA that love you and your history and your story of your career. And people are kind of like, fuck Phil Jackson. He's an asshole at this point. So I'm at that point in this because it was really shocking. I'm like, dude, why do you have a problem with this? Seriously, everybody who has a problem with musicians, athletes, people who are in the spotlight being political or speaking their mind, fuck you. These people have feelings and they have the right to freedom of speech too. And in fact, people like Muhammad Ali and people that are outspoken about politics make things happen. Colin Kaepernick, another great example. And this is why, they don't want to fucking hear people say this because they don't like hearing the platform being used for things that could actually change things. So the powers that be, the status quo, get mad when people stand up for their rights like Black Lives Matters did in the bubble, and fucking idiots like Phil Jackson get upset about it. Well, fuck you, Phil Jackson. And that, you know what? Sports and music are inherently political. They always have been. People try and tell U2 or another band, stop being political. Stop telling us what to do. Fuck that. They have a good platform for trying to make change and make good things happen. So I'm always against people that tell people to stop, shut up and play. Let them speak their mind politically because they're leaders and they have a voice just like everybody else and freedom of speech. So fuck you, Phil Jackson. I'm going to say fuck you today. Logical saying respect, David. I've been on the Western Conference the last 2 weeks. The Grizzlies are described as the least efficient offense. Brooks is actually the guy with the lowest field goal percentage. Is more hype than substance. Well, I can see that in his performance. I mean, they just get results. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the box scores. I'm looking at their score totals at the end of big Western Conference games against big Western Conference teams that score a lot, like the Nuggets, like the Suns. And the Grizzlies usually hang with them in like scoring races. Seymour saying Gary Trent as second round pick for Brooks. For Dylan Brooks, I don't think we need to throw in the second round pick. Why can't we just do a sign and trade? We sign Gary to a deal and flip him for Dylan. Although that's not going to help our 3-point shooting. That's not going to help our 3-point shooting. Fiercely saying, I disagree. Raptors could have taken out the Bucks, provided Nick Nurse made wide decisions and we also hit our shots. Yeah, I'm with you on that. We don't know what it could have, should have. We could have had just as good a chance as Miami. I mean, we were kind of the same level. Chicago, Miami, and Toronto were all kind of at the same level. And it's just Miami had Jimmy Butler and the gumption to go forward. And they're not that much better than the Raptors. The Heat, I don't think they're better than us. And I don't think, Chicago was actually better than us. They just fucking beat us because we're fucking a failure at that night. Joey's saying at David, 41 and 41, blame it on Nick. 18 missed free throws, blame it on Nick. 19-point loss, blame it on Nick. Laugh out loud. 2023, 0 shooters, blame it on Nick. Laugh out loud. Raptors fans are mid. All right, well, if you're calling us Raptors fans, then you're not one of us. And you can get the fuck out of here. I'll show you the door right now. We don't have time. I read a lot of comments on here, and we don't have time for negative ninnies and little bullshit artists like you, Joey Grant. I don't need the sub that bad, bro. I need the time. All right, David's saying, Joey, that was one game, not even part of the 41 and 41. You know how the play-in tournament works. Yeah. All right, and Seymour saying, Joey, your girl is mid, pipe down. Seymour gets a dunk. He's getting very personal here in calling his girlfriend mid. Oh my gosh, you're rivaling Kareem just for doing that. That's funny. True Teller saying, if you notice, Raptors are going back to our old roster format, bringing in Pirtle and shooters. I like that. It shows Masai learned from this experience and moved on it quickly before it got bad. Yeah, this is true, and I've noticed this too. I mean, this is something the experiment with Vision 6-9 has had success and failure, but we're definitely seeing part of the failure at this point. And it's smart. The getting Jakob really symbolized this, that we're going to go back to more traditional 1 through 5 positions. But what Chris said yesterday, because Mike asked him about this Vision 6-9 and what he thinks about whether it's a failure or not. And he said, this is what he said. He said, I think it's good and it works. It's just that we can't do it all the time. And it's very much kind of like you show zone defense all of a sudden in the game. It's you got to utilize it situationally against certain opponents. You can do it. That's what Chris really elaborated on. He said we could do Vision 6-9 against certain teams and it works really well, but against certain teams we cannot. So it can't just be like our end all be all the time mode. We have to have it a versatility. And so it's another scheme that we can utilize. It's very useful for situations, but it can't just be our end all be all the time. And I think that's what we found out from experimenting with Vision 6-9 is it is useful and it can be very powerful use in the right situations, but you can't just use it a default that it doesn't work. Great comment, True Teller. And these are the kind of comments I like. It's like we're getting in the nuts and bolts. We don't have to be overly negative. We can talk about this in the right ways and come at it in the right ways. And I appreciate you being here. Seriously. Infamous is saying, as Shir Khan, I agree this playoff shows we're not ready, but we're close. The Bucks would have taken us out. We don't know that. We don't know that for sure. We do not know that for sure. I'm going to say in the public opinion, if people are going to say, oh, the Raptors wouldn't have won the championship if Kevin Durant had not got hurt, I'm going to say bullshit. We would have won anyway. Even this, who cares? It's woulda, coulda, shoulda. You can make whatever. So why wouldn't we make it the best possible outcome for us? Of course, we would have beaten the Milwaukee Bucks if we were the Miami Heat. Of course we would have. I don't know if it's true or not, but I can have my opinion and say I think they would have. David's saying, M to the lobby. Okay, who are you talking about? M to the lobby. He's got a big boat and a kangaroo. Seymour's looking at the comment that I deleted. That's funny. David's saying, did you see the shot selection the players were getting due to the disorganized, non-existent offensive schemes? Is that the player or the coach? That's the coach. And that's why people are coming at Budenholzer now. Because, like, what the fuck was that at the end of the game last night to try and beat the Miami Heat? Everybody's like, what the fuck was that? That's what I'm saying. If the coach doesn't come through with big plays to win games by setting them up with a good play, sure, the players need to execute it, but half of that is the preparation and the coach setting them up to execute in a successful way. And Nick Nurse failed left and right all season at getting us good execution in late game situations to win close games. And Budenholzer did it last night. And that's why Budenholzer is getting a lot of flack for losing to Miami today, is that they're looking at the play he wrote up for the last second, and they're like, what the fuck was that? And we had a lot of that feeling this whole season with Nick Nurse. Like, what the fuck was that last play? Like, we didn't get a good look at all, and we just lost. Like, in a game we could have actually won. Logical saying, last summer I was actually part of exposing a fraud retro console in television. Okay, it was nuts. An insider made a comment to one of my comments and deleted it 3 seconds after email. Okay, Mike. Mike's involved in like retro console wars. Interesting. And David's got the kangaroo clown, boat, and egg, or the moon or something. I don't know. I don't know that language you're talking there, David Saborn. Pretty fun stuff. True Teller's saying all our players are good, but do they fit? This is a great question, True Teller. See, this is the kind of stuff I like. This is the kind of stuff I like. This is the kind of like, all right, see, this is a totally different approach than Joey Grant. True teller, he came in with a negative first comment, but he's kind of coming at it in a way now that's like, let's suss this out. Let's look at this more closely. That's what Masai hinted at in the press conference. We're going to go with what fits. This is so true. True teller is telling the truth. I heard Masai say this too. Fit was a very much a word that he said when he's talking about our roster this summer. And also, we've all know that he said that nobody's safe. That this is the thing that Fred and Pascal and OG, those guys could be possibly moved this summer, partly because Masai looks at the fit and he said these guys aren't fitting right. And I can agree with this. There's something about the current roster of the Raptors that doesn't click exactly right. It's not like naturally clicking the right way. And I'm wondering if you make one big move, like I was saying earlier, and you get something like Luka or Dame Lillard, and you trade one of these big names, all of a sudden the fit looks real nice and it makes way more sense. I think that you're right, True Teller, that, Masai saying fit was very telling in that interview. And I'm wondering, I don't agree, I don't think that they all fit together. I think that it's very apparent that there's something that isn't right exactly with the makeup of our team, and that it would fit better in some sort of certain way. And it may be diversifying the 6'9". So like we have so much 6'9", maybe we need a more of a smaller guard scorer kind of guy that can come in and do some of the stuff that we need, like for clutch and 3-point shooting and that kind of stuff. And that's diversifying the talent on our team. Instead of having so many good, big 6'9" athletic all around guys, we got to go get a player that fits with the team, that gives us something that we're lacking. And that may be exactly right. I think True Teller's onto something here. I'm not going to speculate about who it is and for what until we see it and trust in Masai and see when he pulls that trigger. Because it could be as big as DeMar for Kawhi Leonard. It could very much be like that. And it could be a name that we're like, holy crap, shocked. A lot of news reports are saying the only person that's off the table is Scotty. And that seems like that's obvious. So anybody, I'm pretty sure Pirtle's off the table too. In some ways, but anybody, even Fred, I say they probably wouldn't get rid of Fred, but if the deal is very, very good and it makes sense and the other people want Fred so bad and it makes sense, that's what I'm saying. So true. I think True Teller's hitting at something very true about the summer. Fit is an important word that Masai's thinking about. David's saying Scotty Barnes, 45.6%. OG, 47.6%. Precious, 49%. I guess you were talking about 3-point percentage, in which case that argument makes no sense. How many teams have multiple 40% 3-point shooters? You're talking about those are field goal percentages. Okay, you're counter retorting to the guy I deleted already. Let's see. Mike's saying $18 million crowdfunding scam. The insider broke the NDA. Mike, I don't give a shit about your console shit. Seriously, let's stay on topic. And I don't have a lot of time, and I don't have time to read comments about things that have nothing to do with this channel. That's interesting stuff to you, but that's not something that we talk about on here. I'm not interested in Amiga and Intellivision shit. I really don't. I'm sorry. No offense, man. Let's see. David's saying, Joey, I won't be hiding. I'll be at the game. Real one. He'll be wearing a Chris Boucher jersey. You come find him. We'll come find you, Joey. We will meet you somewhere. I told somebody I have an open invitation. You have a problem with me and you want to find me, I'll meet you down at Chinatown in front of the Dragon City Mall. And I'll meet you in person. I got checks that I can cash right here from this mouth. I'm fucking 6'4". I'm fucking 220. I'll fucking take you out real quick, Joey Grant. So come on down and see old man in Chinatown. I'll take you down to Chinatown, put you down on fucking top of the fucking new ass streetcar. I'll take you downtown. Yeah. We ain't afraid of meeting up with you. I know David and Peter Saborin personally. These are big dudes too. We'll come meet up with you real quick, Joey Grant. Yeah. Isaac's saying, I don't think any coach with a name or not will garner immediate respect from these refs. We need a coach that will bring out the best of this young team and get them to play through adversity. Now, it wouldn't hurt that they're a known person. Like Kenny Atkinson is a known person around the league. He's actually worked as a head coach. So the refs are familiar with working with him. That's what I'm talking about. Like you see a coach like Jamal Mosley. You see a coach like Wes Unseld Jr. or JB Bickerstaff. These guys are young coaches, and they had to fight to get respect. There was a learning curve of that in their first year as a coaches, and they didn't get any respect. Steven Silas, another one of them. And that's what I'm saying. In some ways, some guys will get more respect easier earlier. Like Earl would get early respect because of his long career and his talking to the refs. He's a person that has relationships with people and talks to people a lot. He's just that kind of personality. So he already knows a lot of the refs really well. So in some ways, Earl would come in with clout, way more clout than Patrick Mutombo would, because he played in the league and he was around Tony Brothers and Scott Foster. And so they know him already. And that's part of it. Then he's already kind of politicked in some ways as a player on the court and also as an assistant coach next to Nick Nurse. You see Earl go and talk to the refs in this past season. He will go and step aside and talk to like Giamidis all of a sudden and just talk to him for a second. So that's what I'm saying. That's a factor that does really matter, is who will the coaches respect? And Adrian Griffin, Earl Watson, Jerry Stackhouse, Kenny Atkinson, Ime Udoka, these are names that they'll respect. But they won't respect people like John Mamalea, Charles Lee, Patrick Mutombo. Certain names they won't respect because they're not really in the NBA family completely, because they weren't former players and they haven't head coached before. So that's part of it right there. Let's see. Joey, I am a Nurse fan, but the reality is he's better for a vet team. He is not a great development coach, and this is what the team has needed since they depend on developing within. Boom. Knocked it out of the park. Gee, you're exactly right. We love Nick Nurse. We're always going to celebrate Nick Nurse and his legacy and what he did here in Toronto. It's just over. It's over. And in some ways, it didn't have to end this way. He forced it. He didn't have to do what he did. And he forced it. In some ways, we didn't want it to happen. The players didn't want it to happen. The fans didn't want it to happen. Masai didn't want it to happen. Nick wanted it to happen. So he made it happen. This fucking guy. He didn't have to do that. He fucked it up. It's Rich Paul's fault. Seymour saying, gee, that part, check mark. Yeah. Infamous is saying, you don't necessarily need clout to be successful. The Jazz coach, Will Hardy, actual clout can work against you because older coaches may be stubborn, set in their ways, and unwilling to adjust. Well, that's why you want to find that sweet spot, Infamous. Like you can get, like Jerry Stackhouse has never coached before, and he's very fresh with his approach. That's why it's like that's a very good sweet spot to be in, because he'll have the clout preordained from 18 years at playing in the NBA. He played for 18 years. You don't think these refs know who he is? They know who he is. And because he's had the coaching experience also, and he's been innovative at Vanderbilt, he was innovative at 905 when he was successful there. That's what I'm saying. That's that sweet spot. He's not really an older coach. He's young, and he does kind of have new ideas and fresh ideas, but he also comes prepackaged with the clout that we're talking about also. So we can have both. Will Hardy, he had his learning curve there too. I mean, he started out the gates really well this season, winning way more than I thought he would with Utah. But there were points this year that he didn't get the benefit of the doubt because he's a rookie head coach and he's very young. You know, that is all peripherally. It's part of it. You know, he may be smart and he may be able to talk to the refs in certain ways, but also he doesn't get a level of respect as like an Eric Spoelstra or a Greg Popovich because he's brand new and they don't really know him yet. So Kweku saying, why Stackhouse? Well, I like the fact that, first of all, Masai gave him the first chance for coaching. He said, will you come and be an assistant coach under Dwayne Casey in Toronto? And when he asked him that, Jerry Stackhouse was like, thank you. You're giving me a chance to be a coach. He was very appreciative of this. So in some ways, he has a loyalty to Masai that nobody even knows about. That Jerry Stackhouse really likes Masai. From when he mentioned him in that All the Smoke interview, his face lit up as he's somebody that he really respects and looks up to. So we know right away that Jerry Stackhouse is a company man and a Masai person that's worked together, and he is known in that way. So that takes some of the like worries about relationship and fit with the front office, that we know he can work with the front office. Then when he said that he really thought he had the job in 2018, instead they went to Nick Nurse for the coaching job. He really thought he was going to be the next coach of the Raptors after Dwayne Casey, and he really wanted it. So in that moment, I see that that Jerry Stackhouse would like to be our coach, that there is a want, and there's a want for him to want to be an NBA head coach. And in some ways, he pictured himself as the head coach of the Raptors. So in some ways, he's already had it in mind. He's just gone and gotten more savvy in Vanderbilt in the years while Nick's been the coach. But he was one of the top candidates when we hired Nick. In fact, he may have been one of the top 3 candidates. So in some ways, it's good to go back and look at him with more experience and more time and his success accrued and say, well, let's see him now. And maybe it's time for him to make that leap now. Now, the biggest thing about Stackhouse that will hold him back is the stuff he's creating in Vanderbilt. He may feel like an allegiance to stay there and see through what he's already been building. And he may not want to leave his young players high and dry. That's the one thing I could see kind of messing this all up. But if he wants to be an NBA head coach, he may be getting that job from us very soon. And that's why. It's why he's had success. He's got fresh ideas. He has clout. He has a familiarity with our team already. He did not coach under Nick Nurse. He coached under Dwayne Casey. So he's separate from any Nurse school of kind of doing things. And in some ways, we want more from the Casey school because we're in a development phase. Nick Nurse school is a success at a higher level, get to the championship. Well, Casey's more, we're in the ground floor and we're trying to build back up to being back in the playoffs and being a good team again. And in some ways, Stackhouse being from that world is better because Casey's development world is what we need more than Nick Nurse's high level. We're coaching a high level team to get to the cup level. Let's see. Seymour saying, don't let Joey get under your skin. He ain't a Raptor. He's not. He's just a troll. He came in here with the Chev crew yesterday. I posted something about Chev, and I did get more traffic, and I appreciate it. Everybody who's new to the channel, I love NBA Chev. He's awesome. I was just being a little critical of him for like being a hypocrite, telling Chris he shouldn't do his podcast. Well, what Chris going to tell you not to do your podcast? Come on now, Chev. It's all good. Let's see. Space Cadet saying, Joey, if you want a circle jerk off of constant negativity, check out Pensair. There you go. Pensair might be your channel, Joey. You may really enjoy He Who Shall Not Be Named on this channel and his way he attacks Fred all the time. It's really fun over there. Not. Sue's saying, I agree. I think Nick Nurse regrets what he said. Shows you words have consequence, but maybe that's the best for the Raps anyway. Yeah. It is what it is. He opened a door that he really fucking couldn't close after that. And it really fucked everything up. It's why he needed to just wait. He should have had that conversation after the play-in game. If he had done it the night after Chicago game, I wouldn't have been mad at him. It would have made more sense. He's saying, I need to take time to reflect. I need to take 2 weeks, think about it. I need to see where I am with the front office. 10 years has been a long time. You know, you sounded like you wanted to fucking leave when you said all that shit in Philadelphia. And everybody went in that direction and you kind of let it go in that way. And it's not good. You could have said something different. You could have said something. These rumors are not true. I'd like to stay in Toronto and I don't know where they're coming from. When you said that after the season in Damage Control. You said, oh, I don't know where these rumors came from. I didn't bring them up. You should have fucking said that in Philadelphia, Nick. You put them in the wrong places. That interview in Philadelphia should have happened after the game against Chicago. And the interview after Chicago should have happened in Philadelphia at the other time. And that's the fucked up thing. You mismatched them. And that's why we went to shit. Raptors Truth Teller saying Casey was our development coach and winning coach. I totally agree with this. I have so much affinity and love for Dwayne Casey, more than the average Raptor fan. I really do understand why he was a big part of why we won a championship. And a lot of people don't give him credit for that because he did build us up and got us to the highest levels. And Nick just like dunked it in. It's almost like he threw the lob and Nick jammed it. And, I totally agree with this. And I do not disrespect Dwayne Casey's development personnel and the way he does things. He's doing it in Detroit right now. He's going to be very successful. That's why we need a coach more like Casey at this point, because we're back in a development mode. And that's why I like Stackhouse. We can't get Casey. He's too old for this shit. He did the Roger Murtaugh and said, I'm getting too old for this shit. And he's done. Well, let's get a disciple, somebody who would actually coach under him and maybe learn some things from him and maybe will be more like him. And that's Jerry Stackhouse. Let's see. All right. Seymour has put the stop sign up. David's saying Seymour gets a dunk for being harsh. I told him to be gentle. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I thought it was funny. He's calling our team mid, and then he calls his girl mid. Mike's saying, not gonna lie, I said that was what the truth of the Project 6ix9ine was. It's about having 6'9" lines, but having a center and a guard too. It was about being oversized in all positions and having a traditional lineup. Well, we just want new looks. Like that's the one thing is like we want to be the most versatile team that can take care of anything with our personnel. Well, we need to have versatile lineups too. And in some ways, we learned that we need a center and we need to have a traditional center lineup against some center lineups that we come up against. There were centers earlier in the season that absolutely destroyed us and were a big part of why we lost games. We saw people like Vucevic just killing us earlier in the season. Well, then we saw later when Jakob showed up, way better outcomes with the centers not destroying us. Zubac and the Clippers, that one game, he just absolutely fed on us, and we had no answer for him. And this is why getting Jakob was so essential. And this diversity in our lineup between going 6'9" and having a traditional center lineup is really a strength. And that's why I'm really happy we got Pirtle. David's saying the emojis mean equal kangaroo. Oh, Joey's a kangaroo, right? And the clown to the moon, meaning kick his ass out of here. Already did, done, and dead. Did, done, and did. All right, Wayne's here. Playoffs are being won in the paint. Shot takers don't mean shot makers. And a lot of players in the NBA are now just shot takers. 1 or 2 points are needed to win the game, but they're taking threes. Yeah, the over-reliance on the three-point line is suspect and stupid. In fact, we've had situations where we could have just gone for 2, but we went for 3. And why? Why would we do that? There's teams that have made that mistake in the playoffs this year, like that Harrison Barnes 3. They didn't need a 3 at that moment. They could have gone down low and gotten a 2-point basket and won by 2 over Golden State in that situation. So there's a lot of weird, people have oriented the offense around the 3-point shot so much that they're forgetting the fundamentals of winning basketball. You don't need 3 points to win, just get 2, and it's crazy. They're making their lives so much harder with a higher percentage shot. I think Wayne's so on point with this comment that the playoffs are won in the paint with the blood, sweat, and tears of physicality. And they're not necessarily won on the outside because those outside shots will miss at a certain point. You really want the best chance to win the paint. I'm totally with Wayne on that. Mo's saying Lexathon in full force. I had to do it. You go, Monique Lawrence. Super fan Mo. We love you. Isaac saying, yeah, I see what you're saying. I just don't want us to get a name over a better fit for the players. These role players and young guns just need development first. Love Boucher. All right, I don't even think there's very many names left, Isaac, if you think about it. Now, if Budenholzer gets fired and then all of a sudden he's a name on the market, he'd be exactly what you're saying. I think I like what you're saying, and I can get behind all this. The development and what's good for the players, the young players, is what matters. And I think Stackhouse hits that. He hits that fine. Y'all, if you have not watched the Hustle Play with Chris Boucher yesterday, watch it. It's fantastic. Once again, he doesn't really say anything too crazy or out of pocket, but he really does give us a chance to see what's happened with this season this year and some of the stuff he's talking about. Mike's saying, yeah, my video game stuff is like wrestling to you. My bad. I have to tune back how I do things here. It's all good, Mike. I don't mind the little asides from time to time. But in some ways, we've been very busy for the off season. I thought I'd be able to cut down my stream times because not as many people would be here, but that's been the opposite. I think the uncertainty of the coaching change has made people want to have more thirst to find out what the fuck is going on. And my streams are still going 3 hours. So I'm going to try and wrap it up in the next 15 minutes and get under 3 hours, guys. And I'm right at the end of the comments anyway. Seymour saying another one bites the dust. Bye-bye. Go wrong. Tragic. Yes. So happy to see Goran go out. Infamous is saying not a fan of Casey. Kyle had to force Casey to play Pascal. Casey was all talk and unwilling to make adjustments in pressure situations. LeBronto is Casey's work. Well, LeBronto is LeBron's work too, to an extent. And it's not totally fair to Casey in some ways. Like, I don't know if Casey could have gotten to the championship the year after LeBron went out west. We will never know that for sure. Some people have said that recently somebody said DeMar would have won the championship instead of Kawhi just because LeBron went out west. Could you say the same thing about the coach? Then maybe Casey, if he had stuck around one more year, he would have gotten past because LeBron had gone to the Lakers. We don't know. We never will know. I'll agree with the problems with Casey as far as with the playoffs. And, he was hitting the head on where he's going to go. That's part of the problem with being a coach. You could be like really good and have all this innovation and good stuff happening in the first couple of years, but you get stagnant. You have to continually be cutting edge. And at some point, maybe the game passes you by and then it's like, oh, fuck, you can't be our coach anymore because he's not working in this situation. That's why something like Popovich is so crazy and abnormal. That this dude has been coaching in this league for 30 years and he's still like, I know this team's been shitty the last couple of years, but in some ways it's a real testament to him hanging on and being around the league for so long, the way he's been able to be the coach of San Antonio for so long. It's really hard to keep on that wave. Most saying big discussions, more followers, and longer streams. Remember, that'll teach you. You go, Monique, and I appreciate you. Mike saying infamous facts. Every coach has their good things, but also has weaknesses. And you discover them as time goes on. And other coaches want to find out the weaknesses of their counterparts and take them to task and pull them apart in that way too. All right, just real quick recap last night. A couple series ending last night. The Miami Heat have eliminated the number 1 seed, the Milwaukee Bucks. A pretty sad and pathetic job by the Bucks. They're in disarray. They're in a bit of dumpster fire. We'll see if they fire their coach. We'll see if they do anything else. Really sad that Golden State won against Sacramento yesterday. I was really hoping that the Kings would win that game because they needed to on their home court. Now they're in trouble. They're going to have to go to Golden State and win for sure in an elimination game on the as a visitor, and that's not good. The Knicks put the Cleveland Cavaliers out last night. Fantastic job by those gritty, gutsy Knicks, bringing some enthusiasm to the Big Apple. People are loving basketball in NYC right now. Stephen A. Smith is dancing. Spike Lee is smiling. Things are good for New York Knicks Nation. And meanwhile, the Cavs, once again, another dumpster fire of failure. And now people are probably wondering what the fuck is wrong with them. Memphis taking care of business against the Lakers last night to extend their season. They are not going to go out quietly, routing the Lakers. And honestly, the game last night, if they can build off of it, the Grizzlies can still win this series and come back and beat the Lakers 4-3 in Game 7. But they've got to go to LA now and win a Game 6 in a very tough, hostile crowd. And the NBA may want to cut them off and get them out of there right away. So we'll have to see how that goes. Tonight, the basketball game is Boston at Atlanta, game number 6. And the Hawks are staying to stay alive, 3-2. They're down. Mark Davis, Curtis Blair, and Jason Goebel are the referees, and they all favor the Boston Celtics. What a surprise. Jerry Stackhouse, episode 160 of All the Smoke. You should check it out, even though it's from last summer. If you want to know who Jerry Stackhouse is a little bit better, check out this interview that Monique shared with us yesterday. It is fantastic. I'll put it in the chat right now, and you can go find it and watch it. It's a fantastic interview. You can find out who Jerry is and understand why I am picking him to be the next coach of the Raptors, why I think he's the guy we should get. Chris Boucher, Hustle Play, once again, fantastic stuff. He touches on so much stuff. He talks about Dylan Brooks. He talks about Draymond Green, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Vision 6'9". He talks about what happened with the Raptors, all kinds of stuff. The truth is told by Chris Boucher. And the one thing I hated about that Hustle Play podcast was at the end, Mike Roach said, "I'll see you in the fall, Chris." I'm like, no, do more episodes during the summer, please. Do more episodes during the summer, Chris. Don't come back and do Hustle Play in the fall. Come back and do it like next week. I want to see more episodes. Please come back and do more of them. Ime Udoka putting us down for no reason at all. Not necessary. You're going on the list with Goran Dragic for that one, Ime. You're going on the list. Fiercely saying, fun fact, State Farm Arena had double booked Janet Jackson and the Hawks tonight. They had no faith. I've heard this. And Trae Young was kind of put a tweet out about this saying, legend, I'm sorry, but we got to take the building. Hopefully you can come to the game still. Janet Jackson, who's supposed to have a concert in their arena in Atlanta tonight. Well, the Atlanta Hawks have extended the series and they got to play, and that supersedes it. I don't know how they handle this. Maybe, I don't know, they just cancel it and put in another date for her. Maybe they could have her singing in the middle of the game. I don't know. Put it together. I don't know. Maybe you can figure it out. Let's accommodate everyone. Janet Jackson. Woo! Woo! All right, y'all. Thanks for watching me today. Please subscribe if you enjoy my channel. Keeping you updated on Raptor stuff every single day. We just love talking and discussing. I really appreciate your Raptors Truth Teller coming in and telling us some of your truth. We may not always see eye to eye, but this is important that we're able to just discuss it in a mature way, unlike Joey, and go forward and like kind of figure things out together. I really think a lot of your points were right on point, Truth Teller, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate that. Let's go Raptors. I'll be back tomorrow for a Friday freak out, and we'll see what happens today that I'll freak out about, and I'll be freaking out tomorrow morning about. Hopefully some good news, no bad news, only good stuff, right? Good stuff. All right, y'all. Have a great Thursday. Let's go Raptors.